The universe hiccuped. That was the only way to describe what happened in main engineering of the USS Enterprise D at 1347 hours. Stardate 47,634.5. One moment, Lieutenant Commander Geordi LaForge was running a routine diagnostic on the warp core's plasma injectors. The next, reality tore open like wet tissue paper, and something red and black tumbled through, crashing into a console in a shower of sparks and profanity. Motherfucking son of a... Ouch. Okay, that's new. Jesus, tap dancing. The rift sealed itself with a sound like reality clearing its throat. The figure rolled to its feet with practiced ease despite having just fallen through dimensions. Red and black tactical suit. Dual katanas crossed on his back. A belt absolutely festering with weapons that had no business existing in the 24th century. And a mask with large white eye patches that somehow conveyed both confusion and manic delight. Deadpool, Wade Wilson to exactly 3 people in his home universe, took stock of his surroundings with the rapid assessment of a man who'd woken up in stranger places. Sleek walls that curved with aesthetic purpose, soft lighting that didn't require bulbs, a pulsing column of barely contained energy that screamed expensive and explodey. People in colorful pajamas backing away slowly. "Oh no," he whispered. Then louder, "Oh no, oh no, 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 no." He spun in a circle, katanas half drawn. "Please tell me I'm not where I think I am. Please tell me this is just a really elaborate escape room, or a coma dream. I will accept coma dream." Security to main engineering. Geordi had his comm badge out, his visor's ocular implants analyzing the intruder with increasing alarm. The weapons alone were triggering half a dozen alerts. "Intruder alert, Deck 36. Intruder, intruder." Deadpool clutched his chest dramatically. "Sir, I am a guest. An uninvited, probably unwelcome, definitely confused guest. But still..." He paused, really looking at Geordi's face. At the visor. At the banana yellow uniform with the comm badge. His head tilted slowly like a dog hearing a frequency only he could perceive. "No, no, you didn't. Universe, you didn't." He pointed at Geordi with a trembling finger. You're... Oh my God, I'm in Star Trek." The engineering crew exchanged uncertain glances. Several security officers burst through the doors, phasers drawn. "Don't move," the lead officer barked. "I'm in Star Trek." Deadpool shrieked, ignoring the weapons entirely. He grabbed his own head like it might detach. "I'm in the good one too. Look at that warp core. That's a Galaxy class. This is the Enterprise D." He whirled on Geordi. "You're Geordi LaForge. You were in Roots. Well, your actor was. LeVar Burton, reading Rainbow Guy." He gasped. "Can I see your visor? Does it hurt? Do you actually see wavelengths, or is that just technobabble?" "How do you know?" Geordi started. "Because I've seen this show." Deadpool was pacing now, weapons forgotten, hands gesticulating wildly. "I'm in an episode right now. This is the cold open. Any second now, we're gonna cut to the opening credits, and wait, what season am I in? Is this before or after Worf's spine thing? Has Tasha died yet? Please tell me Tasha's died. And that actress needed out of her contract." "Stun him," Geordi ordered quietly. 3 phaser beams hit Deadpool's center mass. He jerked, convulsed, and collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. The security team approached cautiously. "That," one officer muttered, "was the weirdest intruder incident ever." "Agreed." Geordi tapped his comm badge. "LaForge to bridge. Captain, we have a situation." In the 3 minutes it took for the security detail to get Deadpool onto an anti-grav stretcher, he woke up twice. The first time, he mumbled something about episode structure and commercial breaks. The second time, he sat bolt upright and yelled, "Is Picard bald yet?" before they stunned him again. By the time they reached the brig, Dr. Beverly Crusher was waiting with a medical tricorder and deep concern. Commander William Riker stood with arms crossed, his beard practically bristling with suspicion. Lieutenant Worf loomed like a Klingon-shaped storm cloud, disruptor rifle ready. And standing calmly in the center, hands clasped behind his back, was Captain Jean-Luc Picard, bald, composed, and already exhausted by whatever this was going to become. They lowered Deadpool onto the brig's diagnostic bed. The force field hummed to life, a shimmer of blue energy between him and freedom. "Scan him," Picard ordered. "I want to know what we're dealing with." Crusher waved the tricorder over Deadpool's unconscious form. Her frown deepened with every passing second. "Jean-Luc, his cellular structure is regenerating from the phaser stun in real time. I've never seen anything like it. His metabolism is operating at approximately 40 times human baseline. There's evidence of massive genetic alteration, but it's stable, not degrading. And..." She looked up, visibly disturbed. "There are cancer cells throughout his body, billions of them, but they're regenerating as fast as his healthy tissue. It's like his entire biology is locked in perpetual war with itself." "Can he die?" Worf asked bluntly. I don't think so. Not easily." "Wonderful," Riker muttered. Deadpool's eyes snapped open. For a moment, he just stared at the ceiling. Then, very quietly, "Engage." He sat up slowly, taking in the force field, the crew, and Captain Picard. A sound emerged from behind his mask, something between a laugh and a sob. "You have no idea how much I need you to say the line, Captain. Just once. For me." Picard stepped forward, his voice carrying that perfect balance of authority and diplomacy that had resolved conflicts across 1,000 worlds. "I am Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the Federation Starship Enterprise. You've appeared on my ship through unknown means, carrying weapons and displaying knowledge you shouldn't possess. I'm prepared to help you, but first, I need answers. Who are you, and how did you get here?" Deadpool stood, brushing off his suit. "Okay, Picard. Can I call you Jean-Luc?" "No. Captain it is. Here's the thing, and I need you to stay with me on this, because it's gonna sound insane." He gripped the force field's edge, and the energy crackled against his gloves. "My name is Wade Wilson, call sign Deadpool, and I'm from a universe where you're a fictional character. Like a TV show. Ran 7 seasons, got 4 movies. He came back for Picard on Paramount Plus. Spoilers, you get a vineyard. And somehow, I just fell through a dimensional plot hole and landed in your warp core." The silence was profound. Data's voice came over the comm. "Captain, I have analyzed the energy signature from the spatial anomaly in engineering. It does not match any known phenomenon in our database. The dimensional variance suggests origin from a parallel quantum reality. See?" Deadpool pointed upward. "Data gets it. Speaking of, is Data down there? Can I meet Data? I have questions about his daughter episode. That one was messed up." "This is clearly a psychological issue," Crusher said gently. "Some kind of delusional state, perhaps exacerbated by his condition." "I'm not crazy," Deadpool protested. "Well, I am crazy, but not about this." "Captain, then ask me anything about your show. Test me. I know things. Like, He snapped his fingers. "You were assimilated by the Borg. Locutus. I am Locutus of Borg. Resistance is futile." That gave me nightmares as a kid. Picard's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "That information is classified. It happened at Wolf 359. Tens of thousands died. You got rescued, you had PTSD, you dealt with it by spending family with your brother in France, who called you out for being emotionally constipated. Deadpool was on a roll now. Riker's been offered command like 6 times, but keeps turning it down. Worf's son Alexander is going to show up eventually, and everyone will wish he hadn't. Troy's going to crash the Enterprise into a planet in the movie. Dad is going to get an emotion chip and become insufferable for half a season. How could you possibly know? Riker started. Because I've watched it. Deadpool threw up his hands. Look, I know this is your life, and I'm some rando in a mask saying it's a show. But from where I'm standing, which is now apparently inside said show, you guys are the fictional ones. Which is really messing with my head because you seem super real. And that warp core definitely felt real when I crashed into it, and those phasers definitely felt real. How many times are you guys gonna stun me, by the way? Because my healing factor makes me immune to permanent damage, but I still feel everything, and getting stunned sucks. Picard exchanged glances with his officers. This was already the strangest first contact of his career, and he'd met omnipotent beings. Mr. Worf, maintain security protocols. Doctor, I want a full medical analysis. And someone find me Counselor Troy. If this man is from another reality with knowledge of ours, we need to understand how and why. He looked at Deadpool with that mixture of curiosity and caution that had kept him alive through countless impossible situations. Mr. Wilson, you're going to tell us everything, starting with those weapons and exactly what you are. Deadpool snapped a salute. Aye, aye, Captain Jean-Luc Picard, holder of the Starfleet Medal of Honor, archaeology enthusiast, tea drinker extraordinaire, future vineyard owner, and the only bald man to make it look distinguished. If you want to see more crossover battles and unexpected universe collisions, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and universe you'd want to see in the comments below. Let's explore the infinite together. This, Riker said quietly to Worf, is going to be a long day. Worf's response was a growl that suggested he was already planning which holding cell could contain someone who apparently couldn't die and knew things he absolutely shouldn't. Outside the brig, the Enterprise continued its journey through space, unaware that its most predictable routines were about to collide with the most unpredictable man in the multiverse. Captain Picard's ready room was designed for contemplation. The curved viewports offered an unobstructed view of stars streaking past at warp speed. Shelves held artifacts from 100 worlds, a Kurlan Naiskos, a Resikan flute, leather-bound books from Earth's classical period. Everything spoke to order, history, and reasoned discourse. Deadpool, seated across from Picard with his hands zip-tied in front of him, a compromise after he'd promised not to touch anything, was systematically destroying that atmosphere. Okay, but here's what I don't get about the whole replicator thing, he said, leaning forward conspiratorially. You can make anything, right? Food, tools, spare parts? But not living things because of the whole transporter clone debate from that one episode. So where's the line? Can you replicate a steak? That's dead cells. Can you replicate medicine? That affects living cells. Can you replicate, say, a realistic... Mr. Wilson, Picard's voice could have cut diamond. We are not here to discuss replicator ethics. Right. Sorry, it's just... Deadpool gestured around the room with his bound hands. This is surreal for me. You understand that, right? I'm sitting across from Patrick Stewart. Well, Jean-Luc Picard. But in my universe, you're played by Patrick Stewart, who also played Professor X in the X-Men movies. Different franchise, long story. And he did this whole Shakespeare thing, and his voice could read a phone book and I'd be entranced. Counselor Deanna Troi, standing beside Picard's desk, closed her eyes with concentration. Her empathic abilities were being assaulted by the emotional hurricane that was Wade Wilson. Captain, his feelings are chaotic. I sense pain, deep trauma, but it's buried under layers of manic energy. There's genuine fear mixed with excitement, loneliness mixed with performance. He's not lying about his confusion, but he's also performing constantly. I can't tell where the real person ends and the act begins. There is no real person, sweetheart, Deadpool said without malice. Just scar tissue and bad jokes all the way down. But I appreciate the psychoanalysis. Really. Most people just shoot at me. How did you acquire your abilities? Picard asked, his fingers steepled in that iconic pose. Oh, that's a fun story. Deadpool's tone suggested it absolutely was not. Short version. I had cancer, lots of cancer, terminal, inoperable, everywhere. Got recruited for a shady super soldier program that promised to cure me. And they activated a mutant healing factor in my DNA by torturing me until my cells learned to regenerate or die trying. Good news, can't die. Bad news, looked like a testicle had violent sex with an older, more disgusting testicle. Also, the torture broke my brain. So now I hear voices, see things that aren't there, and occasionally talk to people who can't hear me. The room fell silent. Even through his manic delivery, the horror of what he described hung in the air. That's barbaric, Crusher said quietly from the doorway, where she'd been monitoring via tricorder. In the Federation, we could have treated your cancer. Cellular regeneration therapy, genetic resequencing. Yeah, well, my universe is a bit more capitalism meets comic book physics. Deadpool shrugged. Healthcare's expensive, mad scientists are plentiful, and informed consent is more of a suggestion. Plus side, I got superpowers. Downside, everything else about my life. Picard stood, hands clasped behind his back, moving to the viewport. It was his thinking position. Mr. Wilson, your arrival represents a significant challenge. If you truly are from a parallel reality, and Commander Data's analysis suggests you may be, then the question becomes, how do we send you back? Do you want to send me back? This isn't your universe. Surely you have people, obligations. I have a cancerous ex-girlfriend who may or may not want me dead. A teenage X-Men trainee I accidentally became responsible for. And a mercenary career that pays me to kill people who usually deserve it. Deadpool counted on his fingers. Oh, and I'm technically dead in my own timeline because I blew myself up to stop a time-traveling cyborg from killing said teenager. So, you know, not exactly rushing home. You died? Riker, leaning against the wall with arms crossed, raised an eyebrow. Got better. Happens a lot. One time I regenerated from being blown to pieces. Another time from being ripped in half by the Hulk. There was this incident with a meat grinder. Actually, you don't want to hear about the meat grinder. Data's voice came through the comm. Captain, I have completed analysis of Mr. Wilson's weapons. They are chemically propelled projectile firearms and edged weapons of late 20th to early 21st century Earth design. Primitive by our standards, but functional. His suit contains advanced polymers inconsistent with that technological era, suggesting access to enhanced material science in his reality. Can I have them back? Deadpool asked hopefully. I feel naked without Baby and Bess. You named your guns, Riker said flatly. Don't you judge me, William Thomas Riker, born in Valdez, Alaska, trombone player, lover of jazz, and questionable romantic decisions. I know about you and Troy. I know you're going to get cloned. I know about that weird episode where you're in an asylum, and this might all be a delusion, which, for the record, gave me an existential crisis." Troy's eyes widened. "How could you possibly know about... We haven't even... Because it hasn't happened yet for you." Deadpool stood abruptly, the sudden movement making Worf, who'd been silent by the door, tense. "This is what I'm trying to tell you people. From my perspective, I've watched your lives. 7 seasons, 178 episodes, 4 movies. I know Data's gonna sacrifice himself to save you all in Nemesis, and it's gonna make me cry, and then they're gonna bring him back in Picard, but it'll be weird and philosophical." "You're saying you know our futures," Picard said slowly. "Some of them, maybe. Unless this is an alternate timeline, which, let's be honest, Star Trek has like 50 of those. There's the mirror universe where everyone's evil and has goatees. There's the timeline where Tasha didn't die. There's the Kelvin timeline where... Actually, that doesn't exist yet in your canon. Spoilers." Picard turned from the viewport, his expression grave. "If what you're saying is true, you represent a temporal contamination risk. Knowledge of future events could alter the timeline catastrophically. Or maybe me being here already has," Deadpool countered. "Maybe I'm supposed to be here. Maybe some cosmic entity. Hey, is Q around? I need to meet Q. We'd get along great." "You know about Q?" Crusher looked disturbed. "Omnipotent trickster god who shows up to test humanity and flirt with Picard?" "Of course I know about Q. He's basically me with God mode enabled." Deadpool paused. Oh no. What if Q is the one who brought me here? What if this is one of his tests? What if... A flash of white light. Reality twisted. And suddenly, there were 2 figures in the ready room instead of 6. Q materialized in full Starfleet Admiral's uniform, leaning casually against Picard's desk with a smile that promised chaos. "Did someone say my name? I could have sworn I heard..." He stopped mid-sentence, staring at Deadpool. His eyes widened with something that might have been delight or horror or both. Oh my, what have we here?" Deadpool pointed at him with both bound hands. "Called it. Jean-Luc." Q ignored everyone else, moving to Picard with his usual theatrical flair. "You've been holding out on me. When did you acquire a jester? And such an interesting one. I can sense..." He walked around Deadpool like examining a curiosity. "Dimensional displacement, probability distortion. And is that fourth wall awareness? Jean-Luc, he can perceive narrative structure. Do you know how rare that is?" "Q," Picard said with the tone of a man who'd fought this battle 1,000 times. "Did you bring him here?" "Me? I'm offended. I was actually in the Delta Quadrant tormenting Voyager. Spoilers, Janeway gets a ship. When I felt the most delicious disturbance in the continuum, someone who doesn't belong, causing causality knots just by existing." He circled back to Deadpool, grinning. "You're a walking paradox. Your very presence creates temporal uncertainty. You're magnificent." "I know, right?" Deadpool struck a pose despite the zip ties. "Finally, someone who appreciates me." "Q, if you didn't bring him here, do you know how to send him back?" Picard asked, already knowing the answer would be complicated. Q waved dismissively. "Of course I could. Snap my fingers, pop him back to his own reality like he'd never left. But where's the fun in that?" He leaned close to Deadpool, examining him like a specimen. "Tell me, little paradox, do you want to go home?" Deadpool considered. "Define want." Interesting answer. Q snapped his fingers. The zip ties vanished. There, a gesture of goodwill between fellow agents of chaos. "Q!" Picard's voice was sharp. "Oh, relax, Jean-Luc. What's he going to do? He doesn't know how your ship works. He has no money because you've eliminated it in your adorably naive post-scarcity society. And everyone on board is either too moral or too competent to help him steal a shuttle. Q turned back to Deadpool. You're trapped in a universe where everyone follows rules, solves problems diplomatically, and actually believes in the inherent goodness of sentient beings. For someone like you, this is either paradise or hell. Definitely hell, Deadpool confirmed, but like an educational hell, with good production values. Q laughed, a genuine, delighted sound. I like him. Jean-Luc, can we keep him? He's not a pet, Q. More's the pity. Q snapped his fingers again, and a chair appeared beneath him. He sat backwards on it, arms folded over the back, watching the room like it was theater. Here's what's going to happen. I'm not going to interfere, much. Your little dimensional refugee is stuck here unless he figures out how to leave, which, given his intelligence versus his insanity, could take anywhere from hours to centuries. In the meantime, he's going to cause you so much trouble, and I'm going to watch because I haven't been this entertained since the dinosaurs. You're just going to leave him here? Riker asked incredulously. I'm going to leave him with you, Q corrected. Do what you Starfleet types do best. Try to help him, try to understand him, and try to prevent him from ruining your perfect little utopia with his messy, violent, fourth-wall-breaking reality. He stood, on the chair vanishing. Consider it a test, Jean-Luc. Can your Federation handle someone who exists outside its rules? He vanished in a flash of light before Picard could respond. The ready room was silent, except for the ambient hum of the Enterprise's systems. Well, Deadpool said brightly, that could have gone worse. Picard closed his eyes, summoning reserves of patience built over decades of command. When he opened them, they held the steel that had faced down Borg and Romulans. Mr. Wilson, you will submit to a full medical examination. You will surrender your weapons. You will be assigned quarters under security supervision, and you will not, under any circumstances, cause trouble aboard my ship. Is that understood? Crystal clear, Captain Baldy. Captain Picard, sir. Deadpool snapped another salute. One question, though. Does this mean I get a uniform? Because I've always wanted to wear one of those space pajamas. I'm thinking, red? No, wait. Red shirts die first. Yellow? That's engineering and security. Gold? Command track. Ooh, I could be a captain. Captain Deadpool of the USS Chimichangas. Security will escort you to sickbay, Picard said to Worf. And Mr. Worf, if he tries anything, I will stun him repeatedly. Worf's hand was already on his phaser. See? We're bonding already. Deadpool followed Worf to the door, then paused. Hey, Captain. For what it's worth, I really am a fan. And I promise I'll try not to break your ship much. After they left, the remaining officers stood in shell-shocked silence. Counselor, Picard said quietly. Your assessment? Troy took a breath. He's telling the truth as he understands it. He's also deeply damaged, isolated, and using humor as a survival mechanism. Beneath all the chaos, there's someone who desperately wants connection, but doesn't know how to achieve it without pushing people away. She paused. He's also legitimately insane, Captain. Not dangerously so necessarily, but his grasp on reality is flexible. And Q just dumped him in our laps, Riker said. Indeed. Picard returned to his desk, suddenly looking very tired. Number 1. Have Data compile everything Mr. Wilson has said about future events. We'll treat it as temporal contamination and classify it accordingly. Doctor, coordinate with engineering. I want to know if there's any way to detect or recreate the dimensional anomaly that brought him here. "And if we can't send him back?" Crusher asked. Picard looked out at the stars, and at the infinite possibilities of space, and wondered what he'd done to deserve this particular test. "Then we find a way to coexist with a man who can't die, won't follow rules, and apparently knows how all our stories end." In sickbay, Deadpool was already driving Dr. Crusher to distraction by asking if he could replicate chimichangas and whether the biofilters could remove his scars. They couldn't. And if she'd ever considered the ethical implications of the transporter creating and destroying consciousness with every use. Worf stood guard, hand on phaser, and wondered if this was what fighting dishonorably looked like. The Enterprise sailed on through space, carrying one more passenger than it should. And the universe held its breath to see what would happen when chaos met order at warp speed. The holodeck was Lieutenant Barclay's suggestion, which should have been the first warning sign. "It's a controlled environment," he'd explained nervously to Commander Data in the observation lounge. "We can observe Mr. Wilson's behavior patterns, assess his combat capabilities, and conduct psychological evaluation without risking ship's personnel or systems." Data, who had spent the last 4 hours reviewing Deadpool's initial interviews with fascination bordering on obsession, nodded slowly. "A logical approach. We can program various scenarios and observe his responses. His claim of fourth wall awareness is particularly intriguing from a cognitive science perspective." Which was how, 6 hours after his arrival, Deadpool found himself standing in a holographic recreation of his favorite bar in New York. Sister Margaret's School for Wayward Children, surrounded by holo projections of mercenaries, criminals, and the bartender weasel. "Okay," he said slowly, turning in a circle. "This is either really cool or really creepy. I'm leaning toward creepy." He poked the bar. Solid. Sniffed a glass of whiskey. Smelled right. Picked it up and drank. Tasted right. "Damn, you guys have good holodecks. Better than the ones on Voyager. They've got safety protocol issues and sentient hologram problems in their future." Through the observation window, invisible to Deadpool, Data, Troy, and Geordi watched with clinical interest. "His biometric readings are elevated," Geordi reported, his visor tracking Deadpool's vitals through the holodeck's sensors. "Heart rate increasing, adrenaline spiking. He's stressed." "He recognizes that this isn't real," Troy observed, "but he's still emotionally responding to the environment. It's familiar to him, comforting even." Data cocked his head. "Fascinating. He exhibits signs of nostalgia for a location that represents violence and moral ambiguity. In most humans, such associations would create negative emotional responses." Inside the holodeck, the door burst open. 3 holographic thugs entered, generic threats from the Enterprise's tactical database, upgraded with 21st century Earth clothing and weapons. "Wilson," the lead thug snarled. "You owe Stevie 10 grand, and he's done waiting." Deadpool's hand moved to his hip, where his gun would normally be. Found nothing. "Right. No weapons. Because I'm in family-friendly space." He raised his hands. Guys, I'm gonna level with you. You're not real. You're computer-generated projections of photons and force fields. So this whole threatening thing, not gonna work." The holographic thug fired. The bullet, simulated but programmed to deliver the sensation of impact, hit Deadpool in the shoulder. He spun, hit the ground, and came up swearing. "Ow! Okay, you feel real. Message received." He rolled behind the bar as more shots rang out. "Computer, end program." Nothing happened. "Computer, end program." Through the observation window, Geordi looked confused. He shouldn't know the voice commands. Those aren't in any of the show episodes. He stopped. "Wait, he said he knows future events. Does that include technical manuals?" Data's fingers flew over the console. I have disabled his ability to control the program. The simulation will continue until we have gathered sufficient data. Deadpool, crouched behind the bar, felt his shoulder. The wound was already healing, flesh knitting back together in real time. Okay, Wade. You're in a holodeck. Safety protocols are probably on, maybe. These are the competent Trek people, not the accidentally create sentient AI Trek people. He grabbed a bottle, felt solid enough, and hurled it at the nearest thug. It shattered against his face with satisfying accuracy. He's adapting, Troy noted, using environmental objects as weapons. The thugs advanced. Deadpool vaulted the bar, ducked a punch, and delivered a palm strike to a holographic throat. The thug grabbed his neck, choking. Deadpool swept his leg, sent him crashing into a table, then grabbed a chair and broke it over the second attacker's head. And his combat skills are exceptional, Data observed. Multiple martial arts disciplines integrated with street fighting pragmatism. He targets vulnerable points with precision despite his chaotic presentation. The third thug drew a knife. Deadpool sidestepped, grabbed the wrist, twisted. The knife clattered away. He drove his elbow into the thug's face, followed by a knee to the ribs, and finished with a throw that sent the hologram crashing through a window. Silence fell. Deadpool stood in the center of the destroyed bar, breathing hard, surrounded by dissolving holograms. Okay, he said to the empty air. I know you're watching. I know this is a test. So here's what I know about holodecks. He looked directly at the observation window, the one he shouldn't know existed. Holodeck technology uses omnidirectional holodiodes to create matter and force fields that can be manipulated by the computer. Safety protocols prevent lethal harm to participants. You're probably running a subroutine to analyze my combat effectiveness, psychological state, and threat assessment. In the observation room, all three officers froze. How does he know where we are? Geordi whispered. Deadpool walked toward the window, his eyes tracking perfectly to where they stood. I know you're there, Data. Hi, Data. I'm a huge fan. That episode where you defended your sentience in court. Chef's kiss. And Troy, Counselor Troy, I know you can feel my emotions, so you know I'm not lying. And Geordi, buddy, your visor is amazing, but also, I'm sorry about what happened with that Romulan spy who pretended to like you. That was rough. He cannot possibly see us, Data said, but his voice carried uncertainty. The observation window is opaque from his side. He doesn't need to see us, Troy said softly. He knows the narrative structure. He knows how this scenario would play out in an episode. Deadpool spread his arms. So here's my question for you, Data. And I'm talking to you specifically because you're the science guy who wants to understand me. What are you trying to learn? That I can fight? Already established. That I'm crazy? Also established. That I know things I shouldn't? Super established. He tapped his temple. I know you're in there processing this with that positronic brain, trying to categorize me into some box that makes sense. But I don't fit in boxes, buddy. I'm the thing that exists between panels, the narrative violation, the glitch in your perfect utopia. Data's fingers moved across the console. The holodeck shimmered and the bar dissolved. In its place, a simple white room with two chairs facing each other. Data himself materialized inside the holodeck, taking one of the seats. Please, he gestured to the other chair. Sit. Deadpool blinked behind his mask, then complied. Oh, okay. We're doing this. One-on-one interrogation scene. Classic Trek setup. Usually this is where the android learns about humanity from the quirky guest character. He sat leaning back. Hit me with your questions, Lieutenant Commander Data. serial numbers starting with NCC. I don't actually remember the rest. You demonstrate knowledge that should be impossible, Data began, his golden eyes unwavering. You claim to perceive narrative structure. You reference events that have not occurred. You knew the location of the observation room despite no visual or auditory cues. He paused. Are you omniscient? God, no. I'm barely sapient. Deadpool leaned forward. Here's the thing, Data. In my universe, you're a character. A fictional character. I've watched episodes where you're the main focus. I've seen you struggle with understanding emotions, humanity, art. I've seen you create a daughter and lose her. I've seen you play poker with Stephen Hawking. I know that you paint, you have a cat named Spot, and you dream even though you're not supposed to be able to. I do dream, Data confirmed quietly. That information is not widely known. Right. Because in my universe, there's an episode about it. Birthright, Part 1. You get zapped by alien tech and suddenly you're having these symbolic dreams about your creator, Dr. Soong. Deadpool's voice softened. Actually softened. That episode hit me hard, Data. Because you spent your whole life trying to understand what it means to be human, and dreams are this fundamentally human thing. And you got to experience them, even if just for a little while. Data was silent for a long moment. You speak as though you know me, but we have only just met. That's the weird part about being me in your universe. I do know you. I know all of you. Not personally, but intimately. I've watched your best days and your worst days. I've seen Picard get tortured by Cardassians. I've seen Riker turn down captain positions because he loves serving under Picard too much. I've seen Worf struggle with honor and duty. I've seen Crusher lose patience and blame herself. He gestured around. I know this ship is going to crash one day. I know you're all going to face impossible choices. I know some of you won't make it to the end. That must be a significant burden, Data observed. Knowing potential futures, but being unable to act without causing temporal paradoxes. You have no idea. Deadpool slumped in his chair. Every time I open my mouth, I risk changing something. But also, maybe I'm supposed to change things. Maybe that's why I'm here. Or maybe Q just wanted to screw with Picard and I'm collateral damage. He looked at Data. What would you do if you suddenly knew the future of everyone around you? I am uncertain, Data admitted. The ethical implications are complex. The temporal prime directive suggests non-interference, but my programming prioritizes the preservation of sentient life. If I knew of a future threat, logic would demand I act to prevent it. He tilted his head. Does this create psychological distress for you? Everything creates psychological distress for me, buddy. I'm one bad day away from a full breakdown at all times. Deadpool laughed, but it was hollow. The healing factor keeps my body alive, but it doesn't fix what's broken in my head. I hear voices, see things. Sometimes I can't tell what's real and what's a hallucination. And now I'm in a universe that I know is real, but also fictional and also maybe just another hallucination, and I can't tell anymore. Troy's voice came through Data's comm badge. Data, his emotional state is deteriorating. The stress of dimensional displacement combined with his existing psychological trauma, he needs stabilization, not interrogation. Data stood. Mr. Wilson, I believe we should end this session. Wait. Deadpool held up a hand. One more thing. You asked me what I am. I'm the thing that doesn't fit in your world, Data. You guys have rules, laws of physics, morality, narrative structure. Everything has order. But I'm chaos. I'm the exception that proves the rule. And you, he pointed at Data, you spend your whole existence trying to become more human. But maybe being human means being able to break sometimes. Maybe it means being imperfect. Are you suggesting my quest for humanity is flawed? I'm suggesting that you might already be more human than you think. Because humans are messy, contradictory, broken, and you've got that in spades, even if you process it through circuits instead of neurons. Data considered this. Your perspective is unusual, also statistically unlikely to be therapeutically sound. Yeah, well, I'm not a therapist. I'm barely qualified to be a person. Deadpool stood. So what's the verdict, Data? Am I dangerous? Am I crazy? Am I worth keeping around? You are all of those things, Data replied honestly. But you are also interesting. And on the Enterprise, we have a long history of allowing interesting beings to challenge our perspectives. The holodeck door opened. Worf stood outside, phaser ready, scowling. The captain requests Mr. Wilson's presence in the conference room. The senior staff has questions. Of course they do. Deadpool walked to the door, then paused. Hey, Data, and that thing you said about my perspective being unusual? In my universe, that's called a compliment. I did not intend it as an insult, Data replied. I know. That's why I like you. As Deadpool left with Worf, Data remained in the holodeck, processing the conversation. Troy and Geordi entered through the observation door. That was enlightening, Geordi said carefully. He was telling the truth, Troy confirmed. Every word. He genuinely knows things about our lives, our futures. And it's tearing him apart because he doesn't know what to do with that knowledge. Data looked at where Deadpool had sat. He is a paradox. His existence violates causality. His knowledge violates temporal mechanics. His abilities violate biological possibility. Yet he exists regardless. He turned to his colleagues. I find I am uncertain how to classify him. He is not a threat in the traditional sense, but he is profoundly disruptive to the natural order. So, what do we do with him? Geordi asked. We do what we always do, Troy said with a slight smile. We try to understand him, and hope that in understanding him, we don't lose ourselves. In the conference room, Picard was about to learn that understanding Wade Wilson was significantly easier said than done. Because Deadpool had spent his entire walk analyzing the ship's layout, counting crew members, calculating transporter ranges, and planning at least 17 different escape routes. Not because he wanted to escape, but because that's what his brain did when it wasn't busy screaming. The multiverse had dropped chaos into Order's lap, and neither side was prepared for what came next. The Federation prided itself on having transcended material greed. No poverty, no hunger. Replicators provided necessities. Purpose came from exploration and self-betterment, not accumulation. Currency was an ancient relic, a primitive concept humanity had evolved beyond. Damon Gant of the Ferengi Alliance thought this was the stupidest thing he'd ever heard. Let me understand, he said to his first officer aboard the Decorah-class Marauder Prophet's Razor, currently running parallel to the Enterprise at Warp 6. The humans have a being aboard their vessel who can regenerate any body part indefinitely. That is correct, Daimon. The first officer, a younger Ferengi named Prak, consulted his pad with barely contained excitement. Our intelligence network intercepted Starfleet communiques. Automedical scans confirm unlimited cellular regeneration. Organs, tissue, everything. The human, designation Deadpool, is functionally immortal. Gant's eyes widened with the gleam of latinum. His lobes tingled with opportunity. And the Federation, in their infinite wisdom, are treating this as a diplomatic situation rather than a business opportunity? They are attempting to help him return to his dimension. Fools. Gant stood, smoothing his elaborate coat. Open a channel to the Enterprise. Let's see if their famous Captain Picard is willing to negotiate. Aboard the Enterprise, the senior staff meeting was already going poorly before the Ferengi hailed. Let me get this straight, Deadpool said, standing at the head of the conference table while the officers sat. You're telling me that in this universe, money doesn't exist, like, not at all. The Federation operates on a post-scarcity economy, Picard explained with the patience of someone who'd had this conversation before. Replicators provide material needs. People work for personal fulfillment, not compensation. That's insane. Deadpool paced. How do you buy things? We don't. How do you pay rent? Housing is provided. How do you incentivize people to do terrible jobs nobody wants? People choose their vocations based on aptitude and interest. What if everyone wants to be a poet? Then we have many poets. Picard's jaw tightened. Mr. Wilson, we didn't summon you here to debate economic theory. No, I need to understand this. Deadpool leaned on the table. You're telling me that in a universe where I could replicate infinite chimichangas, nobody abuses the system? Nobody replicates weapons? Drugs? Weird sex stuff? Replicators have restrictions, Riker interjected. Weapons require authorization, controlled substances are monitored, and other items are restricted to personal quarters. So there is weird sex stuff. Moving on, Picard said firmly. We need to discuss your long-term situation. We've analyzed the dimensional rift that brought you here. Commander LaForge believes we might be able to recreate the conditions to send you back, but it will require time and resources. How much time? Several weeks, possibly months. And in the meantime, I just, hang out on your ship? Play holodeck games? Annoy Worf until he snaps? Deadpool glanced at the Klingon, who growled softly. Don't worry, big guy. I'd snap too if I had to work with these Boy Scouts. The comm badge on Picard's uniform chirped, then bridged to Captain Picard. We're being hailed by a Ferengi vessel. Daimon Gant requests to speak with you regarding Mr. Wilson. The room went silent. How do they know about him? Crusher asked quietly. Ferengi have extensive intelligence networks, Data replied. They monitor Starfleet communications for exploitable opportunities. Given Mr. Wilson's unique biological condition, he would represent significant commercial value. Commercial value? Deadpool perked up. Are we talking money? Because suddenly I'm very interested in what the Ferengi have to say. Absolutely not. Picard stood. The Ferengi are profit-motivated to the point of exploitation. They would view you as a commodity, not a person. Captain, in my universe, I am a commodity. I get paid to kill people. Cash, weapons, whatever. But at least the Ferengi are honest about being greedy. Deadpool crossed his arms. Let me hear what they have to say. Mr. Wilson, I must strongly advise, I'm not Federation. I don't follow your rules. And I'd really like to hear an economic system that actually makes sense. He looked at Picard with those strange white eye patches on his mask. Unless you're planning to keep me prisoner? Picard and Riker exchanged glances. The problem was clear. Deadpool wasn't wrong. He wasn't Starfleet. He wasn't even Federation. They had no legal authority over him beyond the general safety of the ship. And if he wanted to speak with the Ferengi... On screen, Picard said finally. But I will be present for any negotiations. The view screen activated. Daimon Gaunt appeared, seated in the gaudy command chair of his Marauder, surrounded by displays showing profit margins and trade routes. His smile was wide and predatory. "Captain Picard, how generous of you to accept my hail. I understand you have a most unique passenger aboard your vessel. One Mr. Wade Wilson, also known as Deadpool?" "Daimon Gaunt." Picard's voice was cold. "Whatever you're about to propose, the answer is no." "You haven't even heard my offer." Gant's expression was wounded innocence. "I merely wish to extend a business opportunity to Mr. Wilson, one that would benefit all parties involved." "I'm listening," Deadpool called out, ignoring Picard's sharp look. Gant's eyes gleamed. "Mr. Wilson, I understand you possess an extraordinary regenerative ability. In my culture, there is a saying, 'A wise man can hear profit in the wind.' Your ability to regenerate organs, tissue, even limbs, this represents unprecedented opportunity." "You want to harvest my organs?" Deadpool said flatly. "Such an ugly phrase. I prefer to think of it as renewable resource management." Gant leaned forward. "Consider, your organs regenerate indefinitely. One kidney could save a life, and you'd grow another within hours. One liver, one heart, spare tissue for grafts, all renewable, all valuable. The medical market for such resources is astronomical." The Enterprise crew looked horrified. Deadpool looked thoughtful. "How much are we talking?" "Deadpool, no," Crusher said urgently. "What he's proposing is barbaric." "What he's proposing," Deadpool interrupted, "is exactly what happened to me in my own universe. Except those guys didn't pay me. They just tortured me and took what they wanted." He looked at the screen. "How much, Gant?" Gant's smile widened. "For exclusive rights to your regenerative capabilities. Initial payment of 1,000 bars of gold-pressed latinum with residuals from each transaction. You'd be wealthy beyond measure. And all I have to do is let you cut me open and harvest organs? With state-of-the-art medical technology, minimal discomfort, and unlike these Federation types, we wouldn't bore you with ethical hand-wringing. You're an asset. We'd treat you accordingly." Picard stepped forward, his voice hard as geranium. "Mr. Wilson, you cannot seriously be considering this. What the Ferengi propose is exploitation. They would reduce you to a commodity, a thing to be harvested repeatedly." "Captain Baldy, sorry, Captain Picard. I appreciate the concern, I really do." Deadpool turned to face him. "But in my universe, I'm already a commodity. I sell my skills to whoever pays. I've been cut open, shot, blown up, and used as a lab rat. At least Gant here is offering to pay me for it." "This is different." Troy spoke up, her voice gentle but firm. "In your universe, you chose those situations, however terrible. What the Ferengi are offering is systematic exploitation. Once you agree, you'd be bound by Ferengi contract law. They would own you." "They'd own my organs," Deadpool corrected. "I'd own their money. Which, in a universe where everyone else is too enlightened to care about material goods, would give me actual purchasing power." "To what end?" Data asked, genuinely curious. "The Federation provides all necessities. What would you purchase with Ferengi currency?" "I don't know, Data. A ship? Weapons? A ticket to somewhere that isn't here?" Deadpool's voice rose. "You guys keep talking about helping me, studying me, understanding me. But what you really want is to fit me into your perfect little system where everyone follows rules and nobody makes waves. Well, guess what? I don't fit. I never have. And at least the Ferengi are honest about wanting to use me. Mr. Wilson, Picard's voice was quiet but carried absolute authority. I have seen the Ferengi at their worst. They will promise you wealth and freedom, but deliver neither. Their contracts are designed to trap. Their rules of acquisition prioritize profit over everything, including sentient dignity. If you go with them, you will not be a partner. You will be property. Gant's voice cut in from the view screen. The captain exaggerates, Mr. Wilson. The Ferengi Alliance has strict commercial regulations. All contracts are binding and... Shut up, Gant. Deadpool didn't look at the screen. He was staring at Picard. You know what the worst part about being in your universe is, Captain? It's that you actually mean it. You genuinely want to help me. Not because I'm useful or because you'll get something out of it, but because that's what you do. You see someone in trouble and you help them. His voice dropped. And I have no idea how to process that because nobody's ever just helped me before. There's always a catch, always an angle, always a price. The conference room was silent except for the ambient hum of the ship. There is no catch, Picard said simply. We help you because it is the right thing to do. Because you are a sentient being deserving of dignity and respect. And that is what the Federation stands for. Even though I'm violent, crazy, a walking temporal contamination risk? Even then, Deadpool laughed, a short, bitter sound. You guys are really selling this utopia thing hard, huh? He turned back to the view screen. Sorry, Gant. Captain Picard just out-guilted you. That takes serious skill. Gant's expression soured. You're making a mistake, Mr. Wilson. The Federation will coddle you until you're useless. We would have made you rich. Yeah, well, I've been rich. Turns out money doesn't fix being fundamentally broken. Deadpool waved dismissively. Take your latinum and go find some other sucker to harvest. This sucker's staying with the Boy Scouts. Your loss? Gant's image cut out abruptly. The Ferengi vessel peeled away at high warp, already seeking the next opportunity. Riker exhaled slowly. That was closer than it should have been. He was seriously considering it, Troy said, looking at Deadpool with new understanding. The offer represented something familiar, transactional. He understands being used because that's his normal. Is that true? Crusher asked Deadpool directly. Are you really that comfortable with exploitation? Comfortable? No. Used to it? Absolutely. Deadpool slumped into an empty chair. In my universe, everyone wants something from me. The X-Men want me to be a hero. The bad guys want me to be a villain. S.H.I.E.L.D. wants to control me. Weapon X wanted to weaponize me. At least when someone pays me to kill someone, the transaction is clear. You pay, I kill, we both go home. Simple. Nothing about you is simple, Picard observed, sitting across from him. Mr. Wilson, I meant what I said. We will help you return home if possible. And if not, we will find a place for you. But I need to know. Can you follow any rules? Any structure at all? Depends on the rules. Don't harm crew members. Don't damage ship systems. Don't violate Federation law. Can you manage that? Deadpool considered. Probably, maybe. I'm like 65% confident I can manage that. That's not encouraging, Worf muttered. It's the best I've got, Worf. My brain doesn't do follow the rules very well. But I can try. For Captain Picard, because he pulled the whole dignity and respect card, and now I feel guilty. He pointed at Picard. That was manipulative, by the way. Very un-Trek of you. I have my moments. Picard stood. Mr. Worf, assign Mr. Wilson guest quarters on Deck 9. Limited computer access, or no transporter privileges. Mr. Data, Work with Commander LaForge on the dimensional rift analysis. Everyone else. He glanced around the table. Treat our guest with courtesy, but remain vigilant. He's proven he can be unpredictable. As the meeting dispersed, Deadpool lingered. Hey, Captain. Why'd you do it? Really? You could have let me go with the Ferengi. Would have solved your problem. Picard paused at the door. Because that's not who we are, Mr. Wilson. And perhaps, given time, you'll understand that not everyone in every universe is looking to exploit you. I wouldn't hold your breath on that one. But thanks, I think. After Picard left, Deadpool sat alone in the conference room, staring out at the stars streaking past at warp speed. For the first time in longer than he could remember, someone had chosen to help him without wanting something in return. It was unsettling, unfamiliar, and he had absolutely no idea what to do with it. Somewhere in subspace, Daimon Gant was already plotting alternative approaches. The profit potential was too great to abandon. If the human wouldn't come willingly, there were other methods. Less legal methods. Methods that would require patience and opportunity. The Ferengi were nothing if not patient when Latinum was involved. And opportunity, aboard a starship full of idealists, was only a matter of time. The guest quarters on Deck 9 were, by Starfleet standards, comfortable. Bed with memory foam equivalent, replicator access, personal workstation, viewport showing the stars. Everything designed for a pleasant stay aboard the Federation's flagship. Deadpool hated it immediately. It's too clean, he complained to the empty room, pulling off his mask and tossing it on the bed. His scarred face, a roadmap of tissue damage and regeneration, twisted in distaste. No bloodstains, no bullet holes, no personality whatsoever. It's like a hotel room designed by people who've never experienced joy. He moved to the replicator, studying it like it might bite him. Computer, replicate, chimichanga. Please specify preparation style and ingredients, the computer's pleasant female voice responded. The normal way, with chimichangas, the way chimichangas are. Insufficient data. Please provide detailed specifications. Oh, for the love of... Deadpool dragged his hands down his face. Ground beef, cheese, salsa, wrapped in a tortilla, deep fried. Is that specific enough? Working. The replicator hummed. A plate materialized with something that was technically a chimichanga, but looked like it had been designed by someone who'd only heard chimichangas described over subspace radio. Deadpool bit into it, chewed, swallowed. This tastes like sadness and particle physics. He set it down. I miss Earth, the right Earth, where food has the decency to be made by people who hate their jobs. A chime at the door interrupted his sulking. It's open, he called, not bothering to retrieve his mask. The door slid open. A Romulan woman stood in the corridor, except that was impossible because the Enterprise wasn't supposed to have Romulans aboard. She was tall, elegant, wearing civilian clothes that didn't quite match Federation style. Her expression was carefully neutral. Mr. Wilson, she said in a smooth, accentless voice. I'm Subcommander Tisarin. I've been assigned as your cultural liaison during your stay aboard the Enterprise. Deadpool's eyes narrowed. The Federation doesn't have cultural liaisons, and the Enterprise definitely doesn't have random Romulans walking around. His hand moved toward where his gun would be. So, either you're a really bad hologram, or we've got a spy situation. I'm betting spy situation. Tisarin's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Respect, maybe, or calculation. Perceptive. The Romulan Star Empire has been monitoring the Enterprise since your arrival. Your unique biology represents strategic interest. Strategic interest. Right. Deadpool stood slowly. Let me guess. You want to study my healing factor? Maybe weaponize it? Clone me. Turn me into a Romulan super soldier. Tale as old as time. Nothing so crude. Tessarin stepped fully into the room. The door closed behind her. The Empire recognizes that you are a dimensional anomaly. Your presence here violates natural law. We also recognize that you possess knowledge of future events, knowledge that could provide significant tactical advantage. And you just waltzed onto the Enterprise to recruit me? Bold move. Stupid, but bold. I've been aboard for 3 days. Tessarin smiled slightly. Cloaking technology isn't limited to our vessels, Mr. Wilson. Personal cloaking devices exist. I've been observing you since you arrived. Your confrontation with Daimon Gant was illuminating. Deadpool felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. She'd been watching him, invisible. That meant she'd seen his conversations with Picard, with Data, with everyone. She knew everything he'd said. That's deeply creepy, he said aloud. That's intelligence gathering. Tessarin circled him slowly, like a predator assessing prey. You rejected the Ferengi because you didn't trust their exploitation. You're staying with the Federation because you don't know what else to do. But you don't belong here, Wade Wilson. You're a weapon in a society that has forgotten how to wield weapons effectively. I'm not a weapon. You are violence given form. Immortal violence that cannot be stopped, only temporarily contained. The Federation will waste your potential trying to help you. The Ferengi would have reduced you to a commodity. But the Romulan Empire? She stopped in front of him. We would give you purpose, direction. We would value what you are rather than trying to change you into something you're not. You'd use me to kill people. You already kill people. You've killed hundreds, perhaps thousands. The difference is, we would give you targets that matter. Federation enemies. Threats to galactic stability. People who genuinely deserve what you can deliver. Her voice dropped. And in return, we would provide resources to send you home. The Empire has dimensional technology the Federation doesn't possess. We could open a rift, send you back to your universe, when you'd never have to see another replicator-generated chimichanga again. Deadpool wanted to say no immediately, wanted to call security, expose the spy, be the hero for once. But she'd said the magic words, send you home. You can really do that? Open a dimensional rift? We've been studying the anomaly that brought you here. Our scientists believe they can replicate the conditions. It would take time, resources, and your cooperation. But yes, we can send you back. In exchange for what, specifically? Tessarin pulled a small data chip from her pocket. Intelligence. You know future events. We want you to tell us what's coming. Borg movements, Federation weaknesses, Dominion emergence. She paused at his expression. Yes, we know about the Dominion. You mentioned them in your conversation with Data. We want everything you know. And then you kill me because I'm a security risk. And then we send you home because keeping you here would be a security risk. Dead men can return as complications. Gone men are simply gone. Tessarin held out the chip. This contains contact protocols, encrypted frequencies. When you've made your decision, use them. But decide quickly, Mr. Wilson. The longer you stay aboard the Enterprise, the more likely you'll become attached to these people. And attachment makes betrayal difficult. How do I know you're not lying? That you can't actually send me home and this is just manipulation? You don't. Tessarin moved to the door. But ask yourself, has anyone else offered you a way home? The Federation is trying. They might succeed in weeks, months, years, never. We have the capability now. The only question is what you're willing to trade for it." She tapped something on her wrist, a personal cloaking device activating. She shimmered and vanished, leaving Deadpool alone with the data chip and a terrible choice. He stood there for a long moment, turning the chip over in his scarred fingers. Home, his universe. Vanessa, maybe. The X-Men, his apartment. Everything familiar, even if it was broken and violent and made no sense. Or he could stay here, in this clean, ordered universe, where people actually tried to help him. Where Picard looked at him and saw a person instead of a tool. Where Data was fascinated by him for his complexity rather than his usefulness. "Well," he said to the empty room, "this is a hell of a moral dilemma. The spy organization offers me exactly what I want. And all I have to do is betray the nice people who haven't actually done anything for me yet, except be nice." He laughed, hollow and bitter. This is usually where the protagonist makes the obviously correct heroic choice. But I'm not a protagonist. I'm barely a supporting character. The data chip felt heavy. Heavier than its physical weight could account for. A chime at the door, this time announced properly. "Come in," Deadpool called, pocketing the chip quickly. Lieutenant Barclay entered, nervous as always, carrying a pad. "Mr. Wilson? I hope I'm not disturbing you. Commander LaForge asked me to deliver this. It's preliminary analysis of the dimensional rift that brought you here. He thought you might want to see the progress we're making." Deadpool took the pad, scanning the technical data he didn't fully understand. On temporal variance readings, dimensional frequency analysis, projected timelines for recreation. The work was meticulous, professional, and agonizingly slow. "How long?" he asked. "Best case, 6 weeks. Worst case?" Barclay winced. "Could be 6 months. We're dealing with unprecedented physics. The rift wasn't natural. It was created by technology we don't recognize. Reverse engineering it will take time. 6 months. Maybe less. Commander LaForge is brilliant, and with Commander Data's help." "Thanks, Barclay." Deadpool handed back the pad. "Appreciate the update." After Barclay left, Deadpool pulled out the data chip again. 6 months on the Enterprise, trying to fit into a society that didn't make sense. Waiting for the Federation's slow, careful, ethical approach to maybe work. Or contact the Romulans now. Trade what he knew, and be home in weeks. He moved to the viewport, staring out at the stars. In his universe, he'd made these kinds of choices 100 times. Betray someone for profit. Choose the selfish option because nobody else was going to look out for Wade Wilson. Survival first, morality a distant second. But this wasn't his universe. And these people, for reasons he couldn't comprehend, were trying to help him without asking for anything in return. "Computer," he said quietly, "locate Captain Picard." Captain Picard is in his ready room. Deadpool looked at the chip one more time, then back at the stars. He could tell Picard about Tissaran. Expose the spy, do the right thing. Or he could use the chip, contact the Romulans, and save himself. The smart choice was obvious. The heroic choice was stupid. And Wade Wilson had never been particularly heroic. He grabbed his mask, pulled it on, and headed for the door. Whatever he decided, he needed to decide now, before he thought about it too much and second-guessed himself into paralysis. The corridors of the Enterprise were clean and well-lit. Crew members nodded politely as he passed. Nobody drew weapons. Nobody flinched. They'd been briefed about him, obviously, but they treated him like a guest, like he belonged here. He hated how much he didn't hate that. At Picard's ready room, he paused. His finger hovered over the door chime. One press, and he'd tell Picard everything. he'd be the good guy, the hero, and he'd wait 6 months for a maybe. Or he could walk away, contact the Romulans, be home in weeks. His finger pressed the chime. The door opened. Picard looked up from his desk, where he'd been reviewing reports. "Mr. Wilson, what can I do for you?" Deadpool stood in the doorway, the data chip burning in his pocket like a brand. And in that moment, he had to choose who he was going to be in this universe. The same broken mercenary he'd always been, or something he'd never tried before. Someone who trusted that maybe, just maybe, there were people who helped without expecting betrayal in return. "Captain," he said slowly, "we need to talk about Romulan spies." Picard's expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. "Close the door, Mr. Wilson. Tell me everything." And Deadpool did. Because apparently, in a universe where money didn't exist and people actually tried to help each other, even someone like Wade Wilson could choose to be something other than what he'd always been, even if it was the stupid choice, even if it meant waiting, even if it meant trusting people he'd just met. Outside the ship, cloaked and monitoring, a Romulan warbird detected the betrayal of their agent through encrypted communication silence. Sub-Commander Tissarin would be extracted, plans would be revised, and the Empire would remember that Wade Wilson had chosen the Federation over them. The hunt had only begun. Security swept Deadpool's quarters 3 times and found nothing. No listening devices, no Romulan technology, no evidence Tissarin had ever been there except Deadpool's testimony and the encrypted data chip he'd surrendered to Picard. "It's remarkable," Data observed, examining the chip in the Enterprise's science lab. "Romulan encryption is typically multi-layered with biometric locks. This chip, however, was designed to be accessible only to Mr. Wilson's unique genetic signature. They anticipated his cellular structure perfectly. They've been studying him since he arrived," Geordi added, running the chip through multiple scanning arrays. "This level of customization requires detailed biological data, which means they've been intercepting our medical scans." Worf stood at attention, radiating barely contained fury. "I have reviewed all security protocols. No unauthorized personnel have been detected, no transporter activity, no anomalous readings. If a Romulan agent has been aboard for 3 days, they have cloaking technology beyond our detection capability." "Or," Deadpool said from where he sat on a lab table, swinging his legs like a bored child, "she was lying about being here for 3 days and just beamed aboard temporarily to make the offer. Psychological warfare. Make me think I'm being watched constantly, so I'm more likely to panic and take her deal." "That is also tactically sound," Worf admitted grudgingly. Picard stood with arms crossed, studying Deadpool with that penetrating gaze that had unraveled countless mysteries. "Mr. Wilson, you surrendered this chip immediately after receiving it. You could have used it, contacted the Romulans, traded your knowledge for passage home. Why didn't you?" Deadpool was silent for a moment, which was unusual enough that everyone noticed. "Because in my universe, I've made that choice before. The selfish one. The save myself one. And you know what? It never actually makes anything better. I end up alive and alone and still fundamentally broken. So I figured maybe I'd try something new." He looked at Picard. "Plus, you did that whole dignity and respect speech, and I'm a sucker for good speeches." "The Romulans will not stop," Worf warned. "If they want him, they will try again." "Agreed." Picard turned to Data. "Can you decrypt the chip? Identify their communication protocols?" "I am attempting to do so. But the encryption is..." Data paused, his expression shifting to something resembling surprise. "Captain, The chip is deleting itself. Fail-safe protocol activated when I attempted decryption. All data is being overwritten. Smoke curled from the chip. Within seconds, it was a melted slag of useless components. Thorough, Geordi muttered. A flash of white light filled the room. The acrid smell of ozone. And suddenly Q stood in the center of the lab, wearing a Starfleet admiral's uniform and grinning like he'd just won a cosmic lottery. Did someone order entertainment? Because this, he gestured at Deadpool, is the most fun I've had in decades. Q. Picard's voice carried the weight of 1,000 exhausted encounters. This is not the time. On the contrary, Jean-Luc, this is the perfect time. Q circled Deadpool like a shark. The Romulans want him. The Ferengi want him. The Federation wants to help him. Everyone wants a piece of the dimensional refugee. He stopped, facing Deadpool directly. But nobody's asking what he wants. What I want is to not be part of your cosmic game show. Deadpool shot back. I've had enough omnipotent assholes manipulating my life. Omnipotent assholes? Q clutched his chest dramatically. I'm hurt, truly. Here I am offering genuine interest in your predicament, and you lump me in with... He waved dismissively. Lesser beings. Q, if you have a point, make it, Picard said sharply. Otherwise what? You'll ask me to leave? We both know how well that works. Q snapped his fingers. The lab disappeared. They were suddenly standing on a barren planet under twin suns, the horizon stretching endlessly in all directions. Everyone except Q and Deadpool vanished. Hey! Deadpool spun in a circle. Where'd everyone go? Bring them back. Relax, they're fine. Time stopped for them. I simply wanted a private conversation. Q produced 2 chairs from nothing, sat in one, and gestured to the other. Sit. What if I don't want to sit? Then stand, I don't care. But you're going to listen because I'm the only one in any universe who's going to tell you the truth. Q's smile faded. His expression became serious, genuinely serious, which was unsettling. You don't belong here, Wade Wilson. Not because you're not welcome, but because your existence here is creating causality knots. Every moment you remain, the timeline fractures a little more. Every piece of future knowledge you share creates branching possibilities. You're a temporal cancer, and this universe is trying to reject you. Deadpool felt something cold in his chest. Wait, so what are you saying? I'm killing your universe just by existing in it. Not killing, complicating. The multiverse has rules, loose, flexible rules, but rules nonetheless. You're from a reality with different physics, different narrative structure. Your fourth wall awareness is leaking. Your knowledge of future events is contaminating causality. If you stay too long... Q gestured, and the barren planet suddenly showed cracks, reality itself splitting apart. This timeline could fracture entirely. Then send me home. You said you could do it with a snap of your fingers. I could. Q stood, moving to the edge of one of the cracks. But here's the thing, Wade. I'm not actually sure you want to go home. I think you like it here. Clean ships, ethical people. Of a universe where torture for profit is considered barbaric rather than business as usual. You're tired of the violence, tired of the chaos. And for the first time in your miserable existence, you found people who look at you and see potential instead of a weapon. That's not... Don't lie to an omniscient being. It's insulting to both of us. Q turned, his eyes glowing briefly with that cosmic power that could unmake galaxies. You could have contacted the Romulans, could have traded your knowledge for a quick escape. But you didn't. Because you're hoping that maybe, just maybe, if you stay long enough, you'll figure out how to be something other than what you've always been. Deadpool wanted to deny it, wanted to crack a joke, wanted to deflect. But Q's words cut too close to truths he hadn't wanted to acknowledge. "So what do you want from me?" he asked quietly. "Nothing. I'm simply giving you information." Q snapped his fingers. They were back in the lab. Picard and the others stood frozen mid-motion, caught in stopped time. "You have a choice to make, Wade Wilson. Stay with the Federation, let them spend months trying to send you home, and risk fracturing their timeline beyond repair. Go with the Romulans, betray everything Picard represents, but get home faster, or..." Q's smile returned, mischievous and dangerous. "There's a third option, which is, you could let me send you somewhere else entirely. Not home, not here. Somewhere new. Clean slate. Fresh start. A universe where Wade Wilson doesn't exist yet, so you're not a temporal contamination. You could be anything, anyone." Q leaned closer. "You could leave all the pain behind." "That's not..." Deadpool stopped. "Why would you offer that?" "Because you're interesting, and because I'm curious to see what you choose." Q stepped back. "I'll give you time to think about it. But decide quickly. The Romulans are planning something. The Borg have detected your unique biological signature and are sending a cube to investigate, and the Federation's timeline is already beginning to fray. Tick-tock, Wade." Q snapped his fingers and vanished. Time resumed. Picard was mid-sentence. "Need to increase security protocols immediately." Nobody noticed they'd been gone. Nobody except Deadpool knew anything had changed. "Mr. Wilson?" Data was studying him. "Your biometric readings spiked momentarily. Are you well?" "Yeah, fine. Just thinking." Deadpool slid off the lab table. "Captain, what happens if you can't send me home? Like, worst-case scenario?" Picard considered the question seriously. "Then we find a place for you in the Federation. You're a sentient being with unique abilities and knowledge. There would be a place for you somewhere. Even if I can't follow rules? Even if I'm violent and unstable and know things I shouldn't? Even then? We don't abandon people, Mr. Wilson. That's not who we are." Deadpool laughed, a short, sharp sound. "You guys really believe that, don't you? That everyone deserves help? That nobody's beyond saving?" "Yes," Picard said simply. "We do. That's going to get you killed one day. Perhaps, but it's also what makes us worth saving." Before Deadpool could respond, red alert sirens blared throughout the ship. The lights shifted to emergency crimson. Picard's comm badge chirped urgently. "Bridge to Captain Picard!" Riker's voice was tense. "We've got a situation. Long-range sensors have detected a Borg cube on an intercept course. ETA, 4 hours. The lab went dead silent. "The Borg?" Crusher whispered. "How did they find us out here?" Data's fingers flew over console. Scanning Borg approach vector. "Captain, they are not heading for Federation space. They are heading directly for the Enterprise. Their trajectory suggests they have locked onto a specific target." Everyone turned to look at Deadpool. "Oh no," he said quietly. "Oh no, no, no." Q said. He stopped. "The Borg detected my healing factor. They want to assimilate it. They want to add my biological distinctiveness to their own." Worf's hand moved to his phaser. "If the Borg are coming for him, we should..." "We should what, mister? Worf?" Picard's voice was cold steel. "Hand him over? That's not an option. Captain, if we engage the Borg to protect one individual, we engage the Borg because that's what we do. We protect sentient life. All sentient life." Picard turned to Deadpool. "Mr. Wilson, you're about to see the worst enemy this galaxy has to offer. I need to know right now. Will you help us fight them, or will you be a liability? Deadpool felt the weight of the moment. Q's offer echoed in his mind. He could call out right now, ask Q to take him anywhere else, escape before the Borg arrived, save himself like he always had. Or he could stay, fight alongside people who'd chosen to protect him even when it put them at risk. Be part of something bigger than survival. I'll fight, he heard himself say. I don't know how much help I'll be against cyborg zombies, but I'll fight. Picard nodded once, sharp and decisive. Then let's prepare. Red alert, all hands to battle stations. This is going to be unlike anything you've experienced, Mr. Wilson. The Borg don't negotiate. They don't surrender. They adapt to any attack and assimilate any defense. Sounds like my ex-girlfriend, Deadpool muttered. One more thing. Picard's expression was grave. If they begin to assimilate you, if they start to take you into the collective, we may not be able to save you. Your healing factor might prevent death, but it won't prevent assimilation. You could spend eternity as a Borg drone, conscious but unable to control your actions. That's horrifying. Yes, it is. Picard headed for the door, which is why we won't let it happen. The Enterprise has faced the Borg before. We survived. We will survive again. After Picard left to coordinate the ship's defense, Deadpool stood in the lab, surrounded by Starfleet officers preparing for battle. Data was running tactical simulations. Geordi was rerouting power to shields. Worf was coordinating weapon systems. And Deadpool was wondering if he just made the stupidest decision of his life. Mr. Wilson, Data said without looking up from his console, your combat skills may prove useful during Borg boarding parties. I recommend you retrieve your weapons from ship's armory. You may need them. Data, buddy. That's the first sensible thing anyone said to me since I got here. As Deadpool headed for the armory, he felt the ship shudder slightly, the Enterprise going to maximum warp, racing to find a defensive position before the Borg arrived. Somewhere in subspace, a massive cube was closing in, carrying thousands of drones and one singular purpose: assimilate the being with infinite regeneration. Q watched from outside space and time, eating popcorn materialized from nothing, delighted by the unfolding drama. The Romulans monitored from their cloaked warbird, recalculating their approach. And the Borg collective, vast and implacable, adjusted course with the certainty of inevitable victory. The multiverse held its breath, and Deadpool checked his katanas, loaded his guns, and prepared to face an enemy that couldn't be killed, couldn't be reasoned with, and absolutely could not be defeated by wisecracks. This, he said to his reflection in a polished bulkhead, is going to suck. His reflection didn't disagree. The armory on Deck 12 was a testament to Starfleet's philosophy. Weapons existed, but they were secondary to diplomacy, exploration, and peaceful resolution. Phaser rifles lined the walls in neat rows. Type 2 hand phasers rested in charging stations. Everything was organized, cataloged, and regulated. Deadpool's personal arsenal sat on a containment table like museum pieces. 2 katanas, dual Desert Eagles, various knives, a bandolier of grenades, and his tactical belt. A security officer, Ensign Martinez, stood guard, looking deeply uncomfortable. Mr. Wilson, she said as he entered, I've been instructed to return your weapons. But I need you to understand, using lethal force aboard the Enterprise is a violation of Starfleet regulations. And these are only authorized for fighting space zombies that want to turn me into a cyborg nightmare. Deadpool strapped on his belt with practiced efficiency. Yeah, I got the memo. He lifted the katanas, feeling their familiar weight. Look, Ensign, I know you guys have your stun settings and your maybe we can talk this out philosophy. But the Borg don't negotiate. They don't have feelings. They're not going to be moved by Captain Picard's speeches, as amazing as those speeches are. The captain has faced the Borg before, Martinez said defensively. He was assimilated. He knows. He was Locutus. Deadpool cut her off, sliding the katanas into their back sheaths. I know. I watched that two-parter like 50 times. The best of both worlds. Still gives me chills. He checked his guns, chambered rounds with smooth clicks. But knowing the enemy and being able to kill them permanently are two different things. Your phasers can drop drones temporarily. My guns can put holes in things. Given the circumstances, I'll take the holes. The ship shuddered, a deep, resonant vibration that spoke of the Enterprise dropping out of warp. The red alert klaxons continued their rhythmic wailing. They're here, Deadpool said quietly. Martinez's comm badge chirped. All security personnel to defensive positions. Borg cube has entered weapons range. She grabbed a phaser rifle, her hands shaking slightly. This is my first Borg encounter. Then stick close to veterans, follow orders, and if someone starts getting assimilated, shoot them. Deadpool headed for the door. And Ensign, don't let them grab you. Once those tubules sink in, you've got maybe seconds before you're gone. He left her pale and trembling, heading for the bridge. The corridors were organized chaos, crew rushing to stations, engineers reinforcing critical systems, medical teams preparing for casualties. Everyone moved with purpose, but underneath, Deadpool could sense the fear. The Borg weren't just enemies. They were existential terror given form. The turbo-lift ride to the bridge felt eternal. When the doors finally opened, Deadpool stepped into organized tension. The main view screen showed it. A massive cube, kilometers on each side, bristling with weapons and utterly alien in its geometric perfection. Lights pulsed across its surface in patterns that suggested vast computational power. It was beautiful in the way a black hole was beautiful, mesmerizing and absolutely lethal. "Hail them!" Picard ordered from his command chair. "No response, Captain," Worf reported. "Predictable." Picard stood, tugging his uniform straight in that iconic gesture. "Shields up, arm all weapons, prepare for..." The view screen flickered. A Borg drone appeared, pale skin marked with mechanical implants, one eye replaced by a glowing red optical array. Its voice was multiple voices speaking in perfect unison. "We are the Borg. You will be assimilated. Your biological and technological distinctiveness will be added to our own. Resistance is futile." "Yeah, I've heard that one before," Deadpool muttered from the back of the bridge. The drone's head turned slightly, as if focusing on something it hadn't noticed before. "The biological anomaly will be assimilated. Its regenerative distinctiveness will be added to our perfection. Deliver the anomaly and your vessel will not be destroyed." "Not happening," Picard said firmly. "This is Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the Federation Starship Enterprise. The being you're referring to is under our protection. We will not hand over any sentient life to assimilation." "Irrelevant. Assimilation is inevitable. Prepare for boarding." The transmission cut. The cube fired, a cutting beam that sliced through space with geometric precision. The Enterprise's shields flared as the beam made contact, holding but visibly straining. "Return fire," Picard ordered. "All weapons." Photon torpedoes streaked toward the cube, detonating against its hull in brilliant flashes. Phaser arrays lanced out, scoring its surface. The Borg cube shrugged off the assault like raindrops, its shields adapting in real time. "They're adapting," data reported from Ops. Weapons effectiveness decreasing to 30%, 20%. Weapons are now ineffective. Rotate shield frequencies, Riker commanded. Buy us time. Captain, they're locking a tractor beam on us, Worf warned. The Enterprise lurched. On the view screen, the cube was reeling them in with inexorable force. Closer, closer, until Deadpool could see individual Borg drones moving across the cube's surface, repairing damage, operating systems, all moving with mechanical precision. They're preparing to beam aboard, Data said. I detect 12 transport signatures materializing on decks 10, 12, and 14. Security teams, engage, Picard ordered. On deck 10, reality shimmered green. 6 Borg drones materialized in the corridor, their mechanical limbs whirring as they oriented. A security team opened fire, phaser beams hitting with stunning force. The first 2 drones collapsed, the next 4 adapted. Phaser fire washed over them harmlessly. They advanced, tubules extending from their hands. A security officer screamed as tubules pierced his neck. Nanoprobes flooded his system. His eyes went wide with horror as his body betrayed him, skin growing pale, mechanical implants erupting from his flesh. Within seconds, he turned on his former comrades, a new Borg drone with Starfleet memories. Deck 12 was worse. The Borg had beamed directly into engineering. Geordi coordinated the defense while simultaneously trying to maintain warp core stability. Drones ignored weapons fire, systematically moving toward the core's controls. If they gained access to the Enterprise's systems, ESA they could assimilate the entire ship's computer core. Fall back to secondary positions, Geordi shouted, retreating as his team laid down covering fire that was becoming increasingly useless. On the bridge, Deadpool watched the tactical displays showing Borg advancing through the ship. Captain, you're losing. Your phasers don't work once they adapt, and they adapt in seconds. You need a different strategy. I'm open to suggestions, Mr. Wilson. Let me go to them. The bridge went silent, except for the sounds of battle coming through the comm system. Absolutely not, Picard said. That's exactly what they want. Which makes it unexpected when I start killing them instead of surrendering. Deadpool moved to the tactical station, studying the Borg positions. Look, your people are dying down there. Your weapons aren't working. But the Borg have never encountered someone like me. They don't know what I can do. Let me be the chaos variable. The moment they adapt to your weapons, they can't adapt to a sword in the face. They can't adapt to creative violence. And they definitely can't adapt to someone who regenerates faster than they can assimilate. Deadpool looked at Picard. I'm not saying I can win, but I can slow them down. Give your people time to evacuate or regroup or whatever Trek solution you're working on. Riker looked at Picard. He has a point. The Borg expect conventional tactics. He's anything but conventional. Picard's expression showed the weight of command, the impossible calculations of lives and risks. Mr. Worf, assign a security team to accompany Mr. Wilson. Engage the Borg on Deck 10. Slow their advance. Understood. Worf stood, and grabbing a batleth from behind his station. I will accompany him personally. Of course you will. Deadpool grinned behind his mask. Klingon honor demands it. Let's go make some cyborgs regret their life choices. The turbolift ride down was tense. Worf stood silently, gripping his batleth, radiating controlled aggression. Deadpool checked his weapons one more time. Question, Deadpool said. If I get assimilated, do you have orders to kill me? Yes. Just checking. Making sure everyone's on the same page about the shoot Wade if he becomes a zombie protocol. He paused. Will it bother you? Killing someone you're supposed to be protecting? Worf's jaw tightened. I am Klingon. I will do what duty demands. But it would not be an honor I would celebrate. Good answer. Very Worf. The turbo lift slowed. Here we go. And remember, aim for the head or the organic parts. And if they start adapting to energy weapons, go medieval. The doors opened onto chaos. Deck 10's main corridor was a war zone. Bulkheads were scorched. Bodies lay on the deck, some unconscious, some beginning their transformation into drones. 4 Borg advanced methodically. Tubules extended, ignoring phaser fire that had become completely ineffective. The remaining security team was in full retreat. For honor and glory, Worf charged with a battle cry that would have made his ancestors proud, swinging his batleth in a wide arc. The blade, not energy-based, purely kinetic, connected with a drone's neck. The Borg's head separated from its body in a spray of hydraulic fluid and corrupted blood. It collapsed, genuine surprise flickering across its remaining organic eye. Deadpool followed, katanas drawn, moving with fluid precision. He ducked a drone's grasping hand, came up inside its reach, and drove both blades through its chest, where organic organs still resided. The Borg seized, sparking and bleeding simultaneously, and went down. They can't adapt to sharp metal, Deadpool shouted to the security team. Hand to hand, now! 2 more drones advanced. Deadpool holstered a katana, drew a gun, and fired 3 rounds into a drone's optical array. It staggered, temporarily blinded. He closed the distance, drove his remaining katana through its throat, severed the connection between its mechanical and organic components. It collapsed in a twitching heap. Worf was a whirlwind of controlled violence, his batleth singing through the air. He decapitated 1 drone, disemboweled another. He moved with the precision of a warrior who'd trained his entire life for battle. The Borg were strong, but Klingon rage was stronger. The last drone on this level paused, processing. It had watched its companions fall to primitive melee weapons. The collective was analyzing, adapting, sending the data to the cube. It raised its assimilation tubules. Deadpool threw a knife. The blade buried itself in the drone's remaining organic eye. It stumbled backward, and Worf's batleth removed its head before it could recover. Silence fell. 5 Borg drones lay destroyed. The security team stared in shock. Status report, Worf barked into his comm badge. Deck 12 still engaged? Geordi's voice was strained. They're breaking through to engineering. We can't... On our way. Worf looked at Deadpool, something like respect in his Klingon eyes. You fight well. Thanks. You too. Very stabby. I approve. Deadpool cleaned his katanas on a fallen drone's uniform. But they're going to adapt to this too. Next wave will have reinforced organic components, or better armor, or some bullshit. We bought time, not victory. Then we used that time wisely. Worf rallied the security team. Deck 12, double time. Anyone too injured to fight, fall back to sickbay. They moved as one, a mixed group of Starfleet precision and Deadpool's chaotic energy, racing to save engineering before the Borg could assimilate the Enterprise's heart. Behind them, on the Borg cube, the collective processed the new data. The biological anomaly was more dangerous than anticipated. It employed primitive weapons with unexpected effectiveness. It regenerated from damage that should have been fatal, and it did not respond to assimilation attempts with fear or paralysis, but with violence and tactical cunning. The collective adjusted. More drones would be sent. Stronger drones. The anomaly would be taken alive and delivered to the central processing unit, where it could be properly analyzed and incorporated. Resistance, as always, was futile. But the Borg had never encountered someone who'd made a career of being futile and winning anyway. Engineering was hell. The Borg had breached through the bulkheads like they were tissue paper, cutting through the ship's infrastructure with geometric precision. Geordi LaForge stood at the upper level, coordinating a desperate defense while simultaneously trying to prevent the drones from accessing the warp core's control systems. If the Borg gained control of the core, they could shut down the Enterprise completely, or worse, detonate it. 8 drones advanced through the lower level, ignoring the scattered resistance. 3 engineering crew members had already been assimilated, their screams cut short as nanoprobes rewrote their biology. Now they turned on their former colleagues with mechanical efficiency. "Geordi!" One of the newly assimilated drones called out in a voice that was still partly human, partly collective. "Resistance is futile. You will be assimilated. Your technological distinctiveness will be added to our own." "Shut up, Reginald," Geordi muttered, firing his phaser even though he knew it wouldn't work. The beam washed harmlessly over the advancing drones. Come on. He was rerouting power, trying to electrify the deck plates, anything to slow them down. The doors burst open. Worf entered first, Batleth already swinging, taking a drone's arm off at the shoulder. Deadpool followed, guns blazing, not at the drones directly, but at the support structures above them. A shower of debris and sparking conduits rained down, temporarily obscuring their vision. "Geordi!" Deadpool vaulted over a railing, landed on a lower level. "Get your people out. We'll hold here. I can't abandon engineering. You can't defend it either." Deadpool fired at a drone's knee joint, the organic one. It buckled, collapsing but already beginning to adapt. "Worf, secure the warp core access." Worf didn't question the order, which spoke to how desperate things had become. He moved to the core's manual override station, his Batleth ready for any drone that approached. The security team spread out, forming a defensive perimeter. A drone reached for Deadpool. He let it grab his arm, felt the tubules extend toward his neck, then drove his katana up through its jaw, piercing the brain. The Borg convulsed and fell. But the tubules had touched his skin, injected nanoprobes into his bloodstream. "Oh, that's not good," Deadpool said, feeling the microscopic machines trying to rewrite his cells. His healing factor kicked in immediately, identifying the nanoprobes as hostile invaders and attacking them with the same ferocity it used against cancer cells. Inside his body, a microscopic war erupted. Borg technology versus regenerative mutation. The Borg collective felt it. Felt the nanoprobes being destroyed faster than they could replicate. Felt the anomaly's biology rejecting assimilation on a cellular level. This was unprecedented. On the cube, thousands of drones paused simultaneously as the collective processed this new data. The anomaly could not be assimilated through conventional means. Alternative protocols were required. Back in engineering, Deadpool felt the nanoprobes dying inside him, his body literally consuming them and using them for raw materials. That's new. I'm Borg-proof. He looked at the advancing drones. "Hear that, cyborg assholes? I'm indigestible." "Mr. Wilson, focus." Worf decapitated a drone that had gotten too close to the warp core controls. 3 more drones beamed in directly next to the warp core. These were different. Heavier armor plating over their organic components, reinforced limbs, upgraded optical arrays. The collective had adapted to the melee weapon threat by sending drones specifically designed to counter it. "Yeah, that's the problem with the Borg," Deadpool muttered, switching tactics. He grabbed a plasma torch from a nearby engineering station, ignited it, and swung it like a lightsaber. The superheated plasma cut through a drone's armor where his katana would have bounced off. They learned too damn fast. The warp core hummed ominously. One of the armored drones had reached the control panel, its mechanical hand interfacing directly with the ship's systems. Data began flowing into the collective, shield frequencies, weapons configurations, crew manifests, everything. "They're in the system!" Geordi shouted from the upper level, his visor tracking data streams. "They're downloading the Enterprise's entire computer core." Deadpool threw his plasma torch like a spear. It embedded in the drone's back, but it kept working, unconcerned with the flames consuming its organic components. Its mission was more important than self-preservation, the collective's ultimate advantage and greatest weakness. "Worf, destroy that console. That will disable our warp capability. Better than giving the Borg our Netflix password." Worf growled, but brought his batleth down on the console in a shower of sparks. The drone interfacing with it jerked as the connection severed. It turned, its remaining organic eye focusing on Worf with something that might have been rage if the Borgs could feel rage. It charged. Worf braced, bringing his batleth up to meet it. They collided with tremendous force, Klingon strength versus Borg-enhanced servos. For a moment, they were locked together, neither giving ground. Deadpool saw the other two armored drones moving to flank Worf. He drew both guns, aimed not at the drones, but at the warp core's plasma conduits running along the walls. "Everyone down," he fired. The conduits ruptured. The superheated plasma vented into the room in a controlled explosion that Geordi would later calculate had been exactly calibrated to avoid core breach while still creating a plasma barrier between the Borg and the core access. The armored drones were caught in the blast. Their shields handled the initial impact, but the sustained heat began overwhelming their adaptive systems. They staggered, armor plating glowing cherry red. Worf used the distraction. He twisted, leveraged his entire body, and threw the drone he was grappling with directly into the plasma stream. It burned, organic components igniting, mechanical systems failing. It collapsed, truly dead rather than just disabled. "Fall back." Geordi finally gave the order. "Emergency bulkheads, seal engineering, but we'll vent it if we have to." The remaining engineering crew retreated through the exits. Worf grabbed a wounded security officer, hauling him toward safety. Deadpool provided cover, his guns barking as he targeted any drone that pursued too closely. They cleared the threshold. Emergency bulkheads slammed down with hydraulic finality, sealing engineering off from the rest of the ship. Through the reinforced transparent aluminum viewport, they could see the remaining Borg drones moving through the plasma-scorched room, attempting to bypass the damaged systems. "That won't hold them long," Geordi said, breathing hard. "They'll cut through eventually." "How long?" Deadpool asked, reloading. 20 minutes, maybe less." On the bridge, Picard received the reports with mounting concern. Borg on decks 10, 12, and 14. In engineering sealed but compromised. Shields at 40% and failing. Weapons ineffective. The Enterprise was being systematically dismantled, and they had no effective countermeasure. "Options," he said to his senior staff. "We could attempt to separate the saucer section," Riker suggested. "Leave the star drive section for the Borg, escape with most of the crew. They would pursue both sections and assimilate them individually," Data replied. "Probability of success, 11%. "We could self-destruct," Worf said quietly. "Deny the Borg our technology and the biological anomaly. That's not an option while crew members are still aboard," Picard said firmly. "And we don't sacrifice sentient life to prevent assimilation. Not while there's any alternative." Captain. Data's fingers moved across his console with increasing speed. I am detecting an unusual energy signature emanating from the Borg cube. They are preparing to deploy a heavy assault team directly to the bridge. Given Mr. Wilson's resistance to standard assimilation protocols, they are sending tactical drones equipped for forced extraction. How many? 20. ETA. 90 seconds. Troy's voice was tight with strain. Captain, I can feel them. Their presence in my mind, it's like drowning in static. They're so focused on Wade. Everything else is secondary. They need his regenerative ability. Picard stood, tugging his uniform into place. Red alert. All senior staff, arm yourselves. They want to take this bridge. They'll have to earn it. Riker distributed phaser rifles. Data armed himself with calm precision. Even Troy took a phaser, her hands steady despite the emotional assault of sensing the Borg collective consciousness bearing down on them. 60 seconds. Deadpool and Worf arrived via turbolift, both scorched and bleeding from the engineering battle. Deadpool's regeneration was already healing his burns, tissue knitting together in real time. Heard you're about to have guests, Deadpool said, katanas drawn. Figured you'd need party crashers. They're coming for you specifically, Picard said. Tactical drones, designed for extraction rather than assimilation. They'll try to take you alive to their cube for study. That's not happening. I agree. Picard moved to stand beside him, phaser in hand. A rare sight for the captain. We defend this bridge together. No one gets taken. You're not on my ship. 30 seconds. The bridge crew formed a defensive semicircle facing the turbolift doors and emergency access points. Everyone was armed. Everyone was ready. The Enterprise had faced the Borg before and survived, but never like this. Never with a collective so singularly focused on a specific target. 10 seconds. Reality shimmered green in 4 locations simultaneously. 20 Borg drones materialized, but these were different from standard drones. Heavier, faster. They moved with coordinated precision that suggested direct control by the collective rather than standard autonomous function. Their armor was reinforced. Their limbs contained additional weaponry. And their eyes, all of them, locked onto Deadpool with mechanical focus. We are the Borg, they spoke in perfect unison. The biological anomaly will be extracted, but you will comply or be disabled. Resistance is futile, yeah, we've heard. Deadpool raised his guns. Here's a new one for you. Assimilation is overrated. He opened fire. The battle for the Enterprise's bridge had begun. And in the quantum foam beneath reality, Q watched with delighted fascination as the unstoppable force met the unkillable object, wondering which would break first, the Borg collective's certainty or Wade Wilson's refusal to be anyone's experiment ever again. The bridge erupted into controlled chaos. Deadpool's opening salvo hit 3 tactical drones center mass. Ballistic rounds punching through reinforced armor where phasers had failed. The drones staggered but didn't fall, their enhanced servos compensating for the damage. Within seconds, subdermal plating was already beginning to grow over the wounds, the collective adapting in real time. They're armoring against kinetic impacts, Data called out. His own phaser fire dropping a drone temporarily before it rose again, adapted. Switching to maximum setting, a tactical drone moved with inhuman speed, closing the distance to Data in 2 strides. Its reinforced fist swung at the android's head. Data blocked, countered with a strike that would have shattered human bones. The drone's arm crumpled, but it pressed forward, trying to grapple him into submission. Worf roared, his batleth cleaving through a drone's neck with enough force to sever the spinal interface. The drone's body collapsed, but even decapitated, Its limbs continued twitching, trying to complete its mission. "Aim for the joints," Deadpool shouted, holstering his guns and drawing both katanas. "Sever the connections between organic and mechanical." He ducked a grasping hand, spun, and drove both blades through a drone's knees, the weak points where flesh met metal. The drone toppled. Before it could adapt, Deadpool was on it, one katana piercing the spot where its organic brain stem met mechanical processors. The light in its optical array died. But there were too many. For every drone they dropped, 2 more pressed forward. They weren't trying to kill, they were trying to isolate Deadpool. Separate him from the defenders, create an opening for extraction. Picard fired with the precision of someone who'd commanded starships through impossible battles. His shots targeted optical arrays, temporarily blinding drones to slow their advance. "Fall back to secondary positions. Protect the command console." Riker and Troy covered the retreat, their combined fire creating a brief barrier. But the tactical drones were learning. One produced what looked like a personal shield generator from its torso cavity. Borg adaptation of Federation technology. Energy weapons became useless against it. It advanced like a walking tank. "Worf!" Deadpool pointed at the shielded drone. "Fastball special." "What? Throw me!" Understanding dawned. Worf grabbed Deadpool by the belt and arm, spun with all his Klingon strength, burrs, and hurled him at the shielded drone. Deadpool sailed through the air, katanas extended, passing through the energy shield designed to stop weapons, not bodies. He collided with the drone at full velocity, both blades driving through its armored chest cavity and out its back. They crashed to the deck in a tangle of limbs and sparking machinery. Deadpool rolled clear as the drone's systems failed catastrophically, secondary explosions rippling through its torso. "That was awesome," Deadpool shouted. "Do it again." Perhaps later, Worf decapitated another drone that had gotten too close to Troy. Data was locked in combat with 3 drones simultaneously. His android strength matched their Borg enhancements, his computational speed countering their networked coordination. But they were learning his patterns, on adapting to his fighting style with each exchange. A mechanical fist caught him in the chest, denting his uniform and cracking his internal casing. Sparks flew from the wound. "Data!" Picard fired at the drone attacking his officer, but his phaser was completely ineffective now. The Borg had adapted to every energy frequency the Enterprise could generate. The tactical drone turned toward Picard, raised its assimilation tubules, began to advance on the captain. Deadpool intercepted, sliding between them, his katana sweeping up to sever the tubules before they could deploy. "Oh no, you don't! You don't get to assimilate Captain Picard, not on my watch!" The drone backhanded him with enough force to shatter ribs. Deadpool flew backward, crashed into a console, felt bones break, and immediately began healing. He came up spitting blood and grinning behind his mask. "That all you got, RoboCop?" The drone's optical array focused on him with what might have been frustration if the Borg could feel frustration. It lunged, faster than before, learning from each failed attempt. Deadpool barely dodged, the drone's reinforced fingers tearing through his suit and the flesh beneath. His healing factor kicked in, wounds closing, but the pain was excruciating. "Captain," Data said from across the bridge, his voice synthesizer damaged, causing static. "The Borg are not attempting optimal combat efficiency. They are focusing 87% of their resources on capturing Mr. Wilson alive. If he were not present..." "I'm not abandoning him." Picard fired again, knowing it was useless, doing it anyway, because that's what captains did. "I didn't suggest abandoning." Data dodged a grapple attempt his movements becoming more desperate. I suggest making his capture strategically disadvantageous for them. Speak English, Data. Deadpool ducked, rolled, came up slashing. His katana bit deep into a drone's organic eye. It recoiled, recalibrating. If the Borg believe assimilating you will cause catastrophic damage to their collective, they will reconsider the attempt. An idea, brilliant, insane, and completely unprecedented, crystallized in Deadpool's mind. Oh, you beautiful android bastard. He looked at the tactical drones surrounding him. Hey, collective, you listening? The drones paused, all of them, simultaneously, which meant yes, the collective was listening. You want my healing factor, right? Want to add it to your biological distinctiveness and make yourselves unkillable? Deadpool laughed, manic and dangerous. Here's the thing, my healing factor isn't stable. It's constantly fighting cancer. Billions of cancer cells regenerating alongside the healthy tissue. He pulled down his mask, showing his scarred, disfigured face. Look at me. This is what happens. And if you assimilate me, if you add my biology to your collective, he spread his arms wide, you'll add the cancer too, to every drone, to the entire collective. The drones froze. Actually froze. The collective was processing. He's bluffing, Riker said quietly. I'm not, Deadpool shouted. My cells are in constant war. Healthy tissue fights corrupted tissue forever. And your nanoprobes, your whole assimilation process, it replicates biology. You'll replicate the cancer, spread it to every connected drone. The entire Borg collective will become one giant regenerating tumor. Data's eyes widened, as much as an android's eyes could widen. Captain, he may be correct. Borg assimilation replicates biological structures at the cellular level. If his cancerous cells are inseparable from his regenerative ability, then assimilating him would infect the entire collective with aggressive, regenerating cancer. Picard finished, understanding dawning. He's not a biological advantage, he's a biological weapon. On the Borg cube, trillions of calculations ran simultaneously. Models were built, simulations executed. The anomaly's biology was analyzed from the cellular data they'd gathered. And the collective reached a conclusion. Assimilation of the biological anomaly carried a 73% probability of introducing cascading cellular corruption throughout all connected drones. The cancer would spread through the neural link. Trillions of drones would be compromised. Perfection would be contaminated. The risk was unacceptable. The tactical drones on the Enterprise bridge received new directives. Their postures changed, no longer attempting capture, now attempting termination. Uh-oh, Deadpool said. They're changing tactics, Worf shouted. They're trying to kill him. Isn't that worse? Riker fired desperately at an advancing drone. No, Picard said, a grim smile touching his lips. It means we've won. If they're trying to kill him instead of assimilate him, they've acknowledged he's too dangerous to add to the collective. They've lost. A tactical drone raised an integrated disruptor, Borg adaptation of Romulan technology, aimed it at Deadpool's head. One shot would vaporize his brain faster than even his healing factor could compensate. Worf threw his bat'leth like a javelin. The blade embedded in the drone's weapon arm, ruining its aim. The disruptor blast went wide, scoring the ceiling. Deadpool used the opening. Both katanas flashed in a perfect X-slash, severing the drone's head and weapon arm simultaneously. It collapsed in a shower of sparks and hydraulic fluid. But there were still 8 tactical drones active. They advanced with new purpose, not to capture, but to eliminate the threat permanently. Bridge to engineering, Picard shouted into his comm badge. Geordi, I need options. Maj now. Working on it, Captain. Geordi's voice was strained. The Borg cut through the bulkheads. We're evacuating to Deck 13. But I might have something. The warp core. If I overload it in a controlled burst, the subspace shockwave might disrupt the Borg's transporter lock, sever their connection to the cube. Do it. Captain, there's a risk. Do it, Mr. Elaforge. On Deck 13, Geordi's fingers flew across emergency engineering consoles. He was inducing a controlled warp core breach. Not enough to destroy the ship, but enough to create a massive subspace distortion. It was insane. It violated every safety protocol. It might tear the Enterprise apart. But the alternative was watching his ship be assimilated piece by piece. Core overload in 30 seconds, he announced. Everyone brace for impact. On the bridge, the remaining tactical drones moved to complete their new mission. Disruptors charged. Assimilation tubules retracted, no longer needed. They would destroy the biological anomaly and prevent its corruption from ever threatening the collective's perfection. Deadpool stood in the center of the bridge, surrounded, bleeding from a dozen wounds, his katanas chipped and damaged. Picard stood beside him, phaser raised. Riker on the other side. Worf behind. Data, damaged but functional, forming the rear guard. Troy, trembling but holding her ground. The Enterprise crew, facing down the galaxy's greatest threat, protecting someone who'd stumbled into their universe by accident. 20 seconds. Geordi's voice counted down. The drones raised their weapons. For what it's worth, Deadpool said quietly. Thanks for not throwing me to the wolves. On more cyborgs, whatever. That's not who we are, Picard replied simply. 10 seconds. The drones fired. Multiple disruptor beams lanced toward Deadpool from different angles. No dodging, no escape. Lethal force from every direction. Data moved, impossibly fast. His android body intercepted 3 beams meant for Deadpool, his chest exploding in sparks and torn components. He crashed to the deck, systems failing. Data. Picard's voice cracked. 5 seconds. Worf threw himself in front of another beam, his Klingon armor absorbing most of the impact, but the heat searing his chest. He collapsed, gasping. 3. The warp core erupted. Not an explosion, a pulse. A wave of subspace distortion that rippled through the Enterprise and out into space, hitting the Borg cube like a tsunami of quantum uncertainty. The cube's system stuttered. For one precious second, the collective lost cohesion. The neural link fractured. The drones on the Enterprise, receiving no new instructions, cut off from the hive mind, froze mid-action. Now, Picard shouted, sight-to-sight transport, every Borg drone on this ship into space. The transporter chief, operating on emergency power, executed the command. Green shimmer. 20 tactical drones vanished from the bridge, rematerialized in the void outside the ship. They tumbled through vacuum, still trying to complete their mission, but now utterly helpless. The Enterprise's engines roared to life. Maximum impulse. They pulled away from the cube as its systems began to restore, as the collective regained cohesion and began pursuing. Warp speed, Picard ordered. Any heading, get us out of here. The stars stretched. The Enterprise leapt to warp 7, 8, 9, pushing the damaged engines beyond safety limits. Behind them, the Borg cube gave chase, but the head start was enough. They pulled ahead, the gap widening. On the bridge, medical teams rushed in. Crusher knelt beside Data, already running diagnostics on his catastrophically damaged systems. Another team worked on Worf, treating his burns. Deadpool stood in the center of it all, katanas lowered, watching them save the people who'd saved him. They're breaking off pursuit. Riker reported from tactical, his voice hoarse with exhaustion and relief. The cube is retreating. They're heading back into Borg space. They've decided he's too dangerous, Picard said quietly, looking at Deadpool. We've made him toxic to them, and they'll never attempt assimilation again. Captain, Crusher's voice was tight. Data's primary systems are offline. His positronic matrix is intact, but he took catastrophic damage. It'll take weeks to repair him, maybe months. Picard closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, they were hard as steel. Then we'll take weeks, months, whatever it takes. He looked around his damaged bridge, his injured crew, his scarred ship. We survived. That's what matters. Deadpool pulled off his mask, his scarred face visible to everyone. Data saved my life. Worf saved my life. You all... His voice caught. You could have just handed me over. Solved your problem. Instead, you risked everything. That's the point, Mr. Wilson, Picard said, walking over to place a hand on his shoulder. We don't sacrifice people to save ourselves once we find another way. Always. Even when the other way is insane? Especially then. Picard managed a tired smile. Welcome to Starfleet philosophy. We've been making the insane choice work for centuries. Deadpool looked at Data's damaged form, at Worf being carried to sickbay, at the bridge crew, exhausted but alive. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, he felt something unfamiliar. Guilt. Not for what he'd done, but for what others had sacrificed for him. I need to leave, he said quietly. The Romulans still want me. Other factions will come. As long as I'm on this ship, you're all in danger. Possibly, Picard acknowledged. But you're also a sentient being deserving of protection. We'll deal with whatever comes. Captain, that's an order, Mr. Wilson. Picard's voice carried absolute authority. And you're staying aboard until we find a way to send you home safely. No arguments. Deadpool wanted to argue, wanted to crack a joke, wanted to deflect. Instead, he just nodded. Because for once in his life, someone was choosing him over the easier path. And he had no idea how to process that. The Enterprise limped through space at Warp 4. The best Geordi could manage with a warp core that had been deliberately overloaded and was now held together by what he described as engineering prayers and spite. 3 days had passed since the Borg encounter. 3 days of repairs, medical treatments, and the slow process of putting a starship back together after it had been torn apart from the inside. Deadpool sat in 10 forward, the Enterprise's lounge, nursing what the replicator insisted was whiskey, but tasted like someone had described whiskey to a computer that had never experienced joy. The viewport showed stars sliding past at reduced warp speed, and for once, Wade Wilson was quiet. Guinan approached, her distinctive hat somehow making her appear both ancient and timeless. The Elorian bartender had seen things across centuries that would break lesser minds, which made her uniquely qualified to handle a dimension-displaced mercenary with terminal cancer and a broken psyche. That seat taken? She asked, gesturing to the chair across from him. It is now. Deadpool didn't look up from his glass. Let me guess. You're here to give me the wise bartender speech about finding my place in the universe, or accepting help, or some other philosophical thing that's supposed to make me feel better. Actually, I was going to ask if you wanted better whiskey. She produced a bottle from behind her back. Actual alcohol, not replicated. Saurian brandy, the real stuff. Captain's private reserve. But he said you'd probably need it more than him. Deadpool looked at the bottle, then at Guinan. Why is everyone on this ship so nice? It's unsettling. I keep waiting for the catch. No catch. We're just nice. Guinan poured him a measure of the brandy. Well, mostly nice. Worf's still grumpy about you. But that's because you're better with a blade than he expected. Klingons get competitive. How is he? And Data? Worf will be fine. Burns are healing. He'll have new scars to add to his collection, and he's treating them like honors. Guinan's expression softened. Data's more complicated. Dr. Crusher is rebuilding his primary systems, but it's delicate work. He'll recover, but it'll take time. He shouldn't have jumped in front of those disruptor beams. Deadpool's hands tightened around his glass. I heal. He doesn't. That was stupid. That was what friends do. We're not friends, and I've been on this ship for less than a week. Time doesn't measure friendship. Actions do. Guinan sipped her own drink. Data jumped because he chose to, not because he had to. That's the difference between the Federation and the places you've been. Here, people choose to help, not because they're ordered to, not because they'll benefit, because it's right. I'm starting to figure that out. Deadpool drank the brandy. It was good, actually good. Smooth and complex and everything the replicated version wasn't. Your captain is either the best man in the universe or the most naive. He's both. That's what makes him effective. Guinan leaned back. Can I tell you something about Jean-Luc Picard? He was assimilated by the Borg. Locutus. They used him to destroy an entire fleet at Wolf 359, and thousands died because of what he was forced to do. When he was rescued, he could have broken, could have resigned, could have given up. But he didn't. No. He chose to keep going, to keep helping, to keep believing in the best of people even after experiencing the worst. She pointed at Deadpool with her glass. You know what that takes? That takes someone who understands that trauma doesn't define you. Your past doesn't define you. What defines you is what you choose to do next. Are we still talking about Picard, or are you talking about me now? Both. Guinan smiled. You had choices, Wade. When the Romulans offered you a way home, when the Ferengi offered you wealth, when Q offered you a fresh start in a new universe. You could have taken any of those and run. But you chose to stay. Chose to warn Picard about the spy. Chose to fight the Borg instead of letting them take you. Those weren't easy choices. They were the right ones. They were the stupid ones. Sometimes those are the same thing. The doors to 10 Forward opened. Picard entered, looking tired but composed. He spotted Deadpool and moved to join them, nodding respectfully to Guinan. Mr. Wilson, I was hoping to find you here. He sat without asking permission, which somehow made the gesture more genuine. I wanted to give you an update. Commander LaForge believes he's made progress on the dimensional rift analysis. With Data's preliminary calculations, which he completed before the Borg attack, we may be able to recreate the conditions that brought you here. Deadpool set down his glass. How long? 3 weeks, perhaps 4. We'll need to reach Starbase 234 for specialized equipment, but it's possible. Picard studied him carefully. The question is, do you want to go home? What kind of question is that? An honest one. You've been aboard the Enterprise for nearly a week. You've seen how we operate. You've been part of this crew in your own unique way. You risked your life to save my ship and my people. Picard's expression was unreadable. And I've noticed that when you talk about your universe, you never mention anyone waiting for you. No one you're desperate to return to. Deadpool was quiet for a long moment. There's Vanessa, my ex. We're complicated. And there's Russell, the kid I was protecting when I got blown through dimensions. He's probably freaking out, thinking I'm dead. Again. But you're not rushing back. I don't know what I'm doing, Deadpool admitted. In my universe, I'm a mercenary. I kill people for money. Sometimes I kill bad people. Sometimes I kill people who've been labeled bad by someone paying me. It's not exactly heroic. And here? Here, I just fought off space zombies to protect a ship full of people who were protecting me. I didn't get paid, nobody hired me. I just did it. He looked at Picard. That's not me. That's not who I am. Maybe it's who you could be, Picard suggested. Mr. Wilson, I'm not going to tell you what to choose. Whether you return to your universe or find a way to remain in ours, that's your decision. But I will say this. You have value beyond your capacity for violence. You're intelligent, strategic, and capable of making difficult moral choices under pressure. Those are qualities Starfleet values. Deadpool laughed, a short, bitter sound. Are you trying to recruit me? Captain, I'm mentally unstable, physically grotesque, and I violate about 80% of your regulations just by existing. 85%, actually, Picard said with a slight smile. But we've never been an organization that demands conformity. We value diversity of species, cultures, and perspectives. You would need training, considerable training. You'd need to learn to work within a structured environment. But if you chose to try, I'd be the worst Starfleet officer ever. Possibly, or you might surprise yourself. Picard stood. Think about it. You have 3 weeks before we can attempt to send you home. Use that time to decide who Wade Wilson wants to be. After Picard left, Deadpool sat with Guinan in companionable silence. He's serious, Deadpool finally said, as he actually thinks I could be Starfleet. He sees potential in people others miss. It's one of his gifts. Guinan refilled his glass. The question isn't whether he thinks you can do it. The question is whether you think you can. I don't know. Then figure it out. You've got 3 weeks. Those 3 weeks passed in a blur. Deadpool watched the crew work, their efficiency, their respect for each other, their genuine belief in what they were doing. He helped where he could, which mostly meant assisting security teams with combat training and horrifying them with stories from his universe. He visited Data in the science lab, where the android was undergoing repairs while simultaneously conducting research. They talked about consciousness, existence, and what it meant to be more than the sum of your programming, biological or mechanical. He sparred with Worf, earning the Klingons' grudging respect after the 5th session ended in a mutual draw. Worf admitted quietly that Deadpool fought with honor despite his chaotic methods. He sat with Geordi in engineering, learning about warp theory and why the Enterprise was fundamentally different from anything in his universe. Geordi never treated him like a freak, just another person trying to understand impossible technology. He even endured sessions with Counselor Troy, who gently suggested that perhaps his manic energy was a defense mechanism, and maybe, just maybe, he didn't have to perform constantly to be valuable. And through it all, he watched how this universe operated, how people treated each other, how even in crisis, they looked for the diplomatic solution before the violent one, how they genuinely believed in helping others without expecting anything in return. It was alien, uncomfortable, and increasingly, it felt like something he'd been searching for his entire life without knowing it. On the day they reached Starbase 234, Geordi and Data, now mostly repaired, though still moving with careful precision, presented their findings. "We can do it," Geordi announced in the briefing room. "We can recreate the dimensional rift that brought you here. It'll take approximately 4 hours to set up, and there's about an 83% chance of success. The remaining 17% ranges from nothing happens to we accidentally open a rift to a dimension full of hostile entities. But we're pretty confident about the 83%. Pretty confident, Deadpool repeated. Inspiring. It's the best we can do, Data added. Your unique quantum signature gives us a lock on your home dimension. Once the rift opens, you'll need to transit within 30 seconds before it collapses. There will be no time for hesitation or second thoughts. Picard looked at Deadpool. So, decision time, Mr. Wilson. Do we proceed? Deadpool thought about his universe, about Vanessa, Russell, the X-Men, the violence, the chaos, the constant struggle. Then he thought about the Enterprise, about people who'd risked everything to protect him, about a universe where he might be able to be something other than a weapon. Yeah, he said finally. Open the rift. I need to go back. If anyone was disappointed, they didn't show it. They simply nodded and began preparations. 4 hours later, in the Enterprise's cargo bay, the dimensional rift generator hummed to life. A tear in reality appeared, swirling energy that looked exactly like the one Deadpool had fallen through originally. Through it, he could see glimpses of his universe. A New York skyline, his apartment, home. The senior staff had assembled to see him off, even Data, against Dr. Crusher's recommendations. Mr. Wilson, Picard extended his hand. It's been educational. That's a diplomatic way of saying chaotic and terrifying. Deadpool shook it. Thanks, Captain, for everything. For not selling me out, for actually giving a damn. That's what we do. Picard smiled. If you ever find yourself back in our universe, through less traumatic means, you'd be welcome aboard the Enterprise. I'll try not to make it a habit. Deadpool turned to Data. Take care of yourself, you magnificent toaster. Don't let anyone tell you that you're not human. You're more human than most humans I know. I am not actually a toaster, Data replied, with what might have been humor. But I appreciate the sentiment. Goodbye, Wade Wilson. You have been a fascinating anomaly. Worf stepped forward, holding something. Deadpool, you fought with honor. Take this. He handed over a small Klingon blade, a diktog. May it serve you well in battle. Worf, Deadpool actually had no words. This is the nicest thing anyone's ever given me. Thank you. Geordi waved. Troy smiled gently. Riker nodded with respect. Even Crusher managed a small smile despite having spent 3 weeks trying to understand his impossible biology. Rift stability at 90%, Data announced. You should transit now, Mr. Wilson. The window is closing. Deadpool moved to the rift, then paused. Turned back. One more thing, Captain. That thing Q said about me fracturing your timeline, about causing causality problems. What about it? He was probably right. Which means I should give you this. Deadpool pulled a data chip from his pocket. Not the Romulan one, a different one. I recorded everything I know about your future. Major events, threats, opportunities. It's all encrypted with a time delay lock. It'll only decrypt when each event is about to happen, so you can't change things too much. But you'll have warnings, advanced knowledge. Use it wisely. He tossed the chip to Picard, who caught it reflexively. Consider it payment for the hospitality, for the dignity, for treating me like a person instead of a problem. Deadpool pulled his mask down fully. O'Cannon, Captain, when you meet the Dominion in a few years, they're not interested in peace. Don't trust them. Not ever. Noted, Picard said quietly, gripping the chip. Rift stability at 80%. Data warned. Deadpool turned to the swirling portal. One step would take him home, back to everything he knew, everything broken and violent and familiar. He took the step and vanished into the light. The rift collapsed with a sound like reality exhaling. The cargo bay fell silent. "Well," Riker said finally, "that was the strangest week of my career." "Agreed," Picard replied, looking at the data chip in his hand. "But perhaps the most important. Mr. Data, catalog this under Temporal Intelligence Classified." "We'll use it as Mr. Wilson suggested. Warnings, not certainties." "Captain," Troy said softly, "do you think he'll be all right? Back in his universe?" Picard considered. "I think Wade Wilson is a survivor. And now he's a survivor who knows there are places in the multiverse where people choose kindness over exploitation. That knowledge alone might change him. Or it might break him," Worf muttered. "Perhaps," Picard acknowledged. "But I choose to believe in the better outcome. That's what we do here. We believe in potential, even when it seems impossible." In Deadpool's universe, Wade materialized in his apartment exactly where he'd left it. Mid-explosion, mid-chaos. Time had passed differently. In the Enterprise's universe, he'd spent nearly a week. Here, only about 90 minutes had elapsed. Russell was still there, safe, protected by the X-Men who'd arrived after Deadpool's apparent death. They stared at him like he was a ghost. "Wade?" Russell's voice was small. You're alive?" "Yeah, kid, I'm alive." Deadpool looked around at his apartment. Dirty, violent, chaotic. Everything that the Enterprise wasn't. Long story, very long story. Involves space, time travel, and the most ethically complicated week of my life. "Where were you?" "Somewhere better," Deadpool said quietly. Then louder, with forced cheer. "But I'm back now, and we've got bad guys to fight and moral ambiguity to wade through. So let's get back to our regularly scheduled violence." But something had changed. As Deadpool went through the motions, protecting Russell, fighting villains, making money through mercenary work, he kept thinking about the Enterprise, about people who chose to help, about Picard's absolute certainty that everyone deserved dignity, about the possibility that maybe, just maybe, Wade Wilson could be something other than what he'd always been. He still killed, still joked through trauma, still broke every rule. But now sometimes, he asked himself, what would Picard do? And occasionally, just occasionally, that made all the difference. In both universes, the multiverse breathed easier. The chaos variable had returned to its native dimension. The timeline had stabilized. Order had been restored. But neither universe was quite the same. The Enterprise had been reminded that not every problem could be solved with diplomacy. And Wade Wilson had learned that not every person was trying to use him. Q watched from his omniscient vantage point and smiled. The test had concluded. Both sides had passed. Humanity could handle the impossible, and the impossible could choose to be better. That ultimately was the lesson worth learning. Wade Wilson never returned to the Star Trek universe. He didn't need to. What he'd gained in that brief, chaotic week aboard the Enterprise wasn't rescue or refuge. It was perspective. In his universe, he continued his mercenary work, continued killing those who paid him to kill, continued joking through pain and hiding trauma behind quips. But now, buried beneath layers of scar tissue and broken psychology, there was something new. The memory of being valued without conditions. He protected Russell with renewed determination, not because the kid was useful, but because protecting him was the right thing to do. He started making different choices about contracts. turning down jobs that targeted innocents, prioritizing targets who genuinely deserved what was coming. He was still Deadpool. Still chaotic, violent, unstable. But he was Deadpool who'd seen another way. And that made him dangerous in ways the multiverse hadn't anticipated. Aboard the Enterprise, Captain Picard kept Deadpool's data chip secure. Over the years that followed, it proved invaluable. Warnings about the Dominion, insights into Borg tactics, knowledge about temporal incursions. Each piece of information unlocked exactly when needed. Never too early, always perfectly timed. The crew never forgot the dimensional refugee who'd invaded their ship and changed everything. Data, fully repaired, incorporated their encounter into his ongoing research about consciousness and identity. Worf kept the story of fighting alongside the honorable madman in his personal logs. And Picard, in quiet moments, wondered if they'd given Wade Wilson something worth carrying into his broken universe, or if they'd only made his return home more painful by showing him what he couldn't have. The multiverse is vast, infinite possibilities spanning infinite realities. Occasionally, under the right circumstances, with the right quantum fluctuations, different universes touch. Characters collide, rules fracture. And in those moments, beings from incompatible realities discover that despite everything that separates them, physics, philosophy, fundamental nature, some truths remain constant. Dignity matters. Choice matters. The decision to help someone even when it's difficult, even when it's dangerous, even when there's no benefit. That matters most of all. Wade Wilson learned it aboard a starship that believed in it. Jean-Luc Picard was reminded of it by someone who'd never experienced it. And the multiverse, vast and indifferent, recorded another story of collision and consequence, chaos and order, meeting in the space between realities, and both emerging changed. Somewhere, Q laughed, because he'd known from the beginning how it would end. Not with victory or defeat, but with evolution. With both sides becoming slightly more than they'd been. And that, ultimately, was always the point.